did we change it?
I am gonna be in Hilton Head. My aunt's turning 101.
Go ahead and be in Hilton Head then, sir.
My aunt's turning 101, so all cousins are coming in.
That's fantastic.
Yes, sir.
Hey, if you wanna speak at the agenda, just take it. Maybe wanna introduce your
Just thinking of this
friends and Steve Whiteman, or Steve Carlisle from Whiteman will be here.
Suzanne come?
She's actually got a conflict, but Steve's taking it for her, and he's prepared to answer any questions about them. Hey, Rick.
Good, how are you? Oh, the. Craig?
Hey, pretty good.
Completed our needs. We were, ran for class.
Mike's for
And the cutoff, what's funny was, we submitted the somehow the state has something. Which one? Refile. Cutoff was about 250 at the $100. That's where we lived, until he found 6 points.
So when it comes up on the agenda, I think Jerry's gonna, he's gonna.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
I trimmed it down, actually. I had like a whole other inch on it the other day. I had a professional take care of that.
So it's not on the agenda, you have to pass that.
It's probably my wife kissing on me.
Thanks for being here. Steve.
Got a full partner on there. Don, how are you this evening? I'm doing well.
How are you? I love that. I love the wrap tonight. It looks good.
I think I did, yes. But we're holding the problem tonight.
Oh, he gets right. I heard that. A lot of people dying.
But you know what?
Okay.
I was gonna tell people what sledding was in and out of it. Nice talking.
Oh, I did that. Or like to probably call her a rebel. Because, just because she was the first girl to surrender the patrol boys at Mountain. Oh, yeah. Make a movie.
You know, it is something I get really proud of here all the
You know, the time goes by and
If you don't, one thing about the Barron County record, something about the city and the road thing. Unless you do Facebook or what's out here, you don't know nothing.
you know, like I said, I've known your dad, your dad, and Dick,
But the only thing I do
for
is
years and years and years, you
sit
know.
home to the computer in the morning. I open it, see if I
You
can.
know, stuff that you forget, and then when it's rough, you get out.
That's if you're gonna be known for something,
That's
that's something to be proud of. Yeah, it makes me proud to hear that. What do we got here? What's this new one here?
I laughed. I laughed so hard when I saw your email back.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Now,
I thought about it long and hard, and
I commend you on holding your,
going back and forth. So,
not losing it, because I would have.
Yeah.
you know, after I talked to you, when you said something, yeah, he's probably
Reed is going, and
55 years later.
I got my recorder going.
your accomplishment versus mine. Staying low. Couldn't have said anything nice. Hopefully.
I mean, it was a good email, it really was.
What are you gonna do, right?
So the next time I need to write an email like that, I'm gonna call you.
Let me
Or
think.
for evening, after you delete yours.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, you don't know what I want. These are free.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you do.
I might just-
Yeah, I would imagine you do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Tearing up some tacos between hockey practice and getting here. We got state, Scott Carlin as our hockey coach.
Oh,
They come to see you.
First year.
I heard you were back on the chair, so I came to see you today.
I have no idea.
Good team.
Apparently it was supposed to come in front of us, wasn't it? I think they're gonna bring it up. I don't know.
You have to make the motion to amend it if you want it on there.
I'm gonna start complaining if these aren't stapled together.
Put it in. I don't care.
I mean, you should have never had an emergency meeting.
You need a Band-Aid or something, Don? You sure? All right.
He's an aircraft carrier pilot, aircraft captain, or co-captain, whatever. He's tough. Is our city lawyer?
Yeah, the two in the corner. So
Yeah.
one with blue tie is Matt.
9 o'clock.
Tomorrow, one derby is blue tie. Yeah. Jim Enright's got a, well, he's the environmental.
Yeah, he's one of the.
No, it's just, he's probably doing a presentation like this.
Oh, weird. I was gonna say, you told me something.
Sean, before you make the for the agenda, we'll have to amend it to add in the recommendation this morning.
It's important.
What are you guys doing over there?
He was sitting right next to me and I told him that I had a bad cold and he moved to the next room. I thought it was the appropriate move.
Yeah. I thought maybe it was Tom.
I sound like Elmer.
Yeah. And
We won't hold
you
it.
did notice that I was quiet.
Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Buchanan City Commission. It's Monday, January 9th, 2023. Happy New Year. I'm calling the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Dennison,
Here.
Whedon,
Here.
Bianski,
Yes.
Money,
Present.
Swem.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to open it up for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, please make your way to the podium and state your name for the minutes. Is there anyone wishing to make a public comment on agenda items only, please?
Here comes
Norma Ferris. I would like to know more about this trail extension. This doesn't give me a whole lot of information.
Anyone else wishing to make a public comment? Going once, going twice. Seeing no one, let's move on to the agenda. We're going to amend the agenda.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how to, we have to talk about the lift station at River Park.
Can you help us with that, Cal?
Yeah, so I would put, make the motion to do scheduled matters from the floor, well, actually probably departments, because the Joint Water Sewer Board met this morning and recommended, for the city commission to discuss the single lift station and infrastructure at the 15 to 12 restaurant. I would put it under reports, since reports, boards, and committees as the last item.
So it would be item D, lift station.
Oh, right here.
Okay. We're putting it under
Just
item
above-
D, under reports.
Just above Hanson's business.
It'll be,
Oh, Ron, I got it.
yeah,
Thank you.
just above unfinished business.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve the amended agenda?
Sean will make said motion.
Thank you, is there support?
I'll support.
Can we have roll call, please?
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yes.
Money,
Yes.
Clem,
Abstain, business interest.
Dennison,
Yes,
carries.
thank you.
Before you continue, Your Honor, and tell me if I'm on the line, I'm quite open to it. But, there's been a lot of questions about all the money we're spending on our lawyer. And I see he's here tonight. Can we explain why? Or should we explain why? I didn't really want to make an amendment to the agenda, but I mean, you can tell me no, and I'm quite good with that.
I mean, I think we can,
I don't think it's much of a shock.
what, that he's here?
Yeah, no, well, but, you know, I mean,
I mean, I don't know that it,
really care for the idea that he's here just watching at whatever rate he's getting paid per hour. I'm
I
very
get that. I
happy
guess
about how much we're paying our lawyer.
I think that's something we can probably discuss without taking up time in the meeting, honestly.
So we're gonna leave him here tonight? That would be my only question.
Yes,
Okay, I'm good with that.
okay. Someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there support?
I would support.
Thank you. Can we have roll call?
Bianski,
Yes.
Money,
Yes.
Clem,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
carries.
Thank you. Okay, moving down to scheduled matters from the floor. Mr. Andy Campbell with Baker Tilly is here to speak with us regarding the analysis of the DPW building costs and how it relates to water sewer rates.
Hello, everybody, again. They have
That's
that.
correct.
Okay, all right. So Andy Campbell with Baker Tilly, met with four of you in the past. Nice to meet the new commissioner. Here to talk about a few things tonight. The first one is the schedule and how the potential breakout will work for the DPW building debt payment that is coming up here soon. I know there's a lot of questions about the rates as well, so we're going to talk about water and sewer rates and how the update is looking in terms of water and sewer rates, where they're going to go in the future. And is this on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Just want to make
Got
sure.
it. This is-
So we'll get right into it. Let's talk about the DPW building first, and because that is an input as for the rates. So I know it's been talked about for a couple of years now or more in terms of the DPW building process, but we are getting closer. It is still at the direction of the commission to move forward, is my understanding. The process from here we are planning on closing mid-March. So from now until then, it will basically be, we're finalizing the draft of what's called the official statement, commonly called the prospectus in the corporate world, which is the bond buying document that everybody bids on and has like the rating and has information about Buchanan, about the project, the amount, how you're gonna repay it, all that stuff. That's being finalized here. The draft is being finalized this week. It will be sent to the rating agency here soon to apply for the rating. We'll receive the rating early February. We'll go to sale at the end of February, and then close in mid-March. So we will know the finalized details of the payments in terms of interest rate and payment in the end of February. That bond sale date right now is February 28th. It can be moved a little bit here and there. Obviously, if things just, you ultimately have the discretion to shut it down until then, or if the bids don't come back what you want it to be, you have the discretion to shut it down on sale day. But we will hopefully have that finalized based on the market, based on targeting the best day for sale in mid-February. The market has actually gotten positive in the last couple months. It was a little bit scary for a while because from November of 2021 until probably about late November of last year, so about a year or so, it was on a massive upward trajectory in terms of the interest rates. They have settled down a little bit. I'm not an economist, but I mean, a lot of it from what we see in our internal is that there's concerns about the world, and that helps municipals actually, because there's a flight to quality, a flight to investments that are secure, and municipal debt is commonly seen as pretty secure investment. So that's helped a little bit. There is actually a lot less supply right now too. So interest rates have gone down a little bit with those two things in mind. We hope that in the next month and a half to 2 months, everything stays where they're at, and we can get a positive sale for the city. On the breakout for the debt payments, so this sheet right here, one of the things that we've been working on, this has been, appreciate help from staff here, that we've been kind of waiting to see how things have panned out. And ultimately, this is hopefully going to be at least, this is not a formal resolution, but just like a nodding ahead to move forward with this assumption of the payments and where they're going to be made. The biggest question that we've had in the past couple months is how are the bonds going to be paid back, knowing that we don't want to drastically affect the water and sewer cash flows and change away from our 8% per year assumption, which we'll talk about in a second. So it was trying to work in the cash flows. It wasn't looking, like I talked about, like it wasn't looking good for a while because interest rates had gone up significantly. We were not hitting the debt payments where we could afford to do that with the current cash flow. It has settled down. So we do think it is reasonable right now to consider that it is possible at this point to hit that mark. You'll see on that breakout, the estimated debt payments, if we do a level debt service, which I'll talk about as well here. Level debt service generally means it's like a mortgage. Your payments are the exact same, what we're planning on it for 30 years because of the cash flow need of the city. So essentially your principal and interest would be estimated at $300,000 a year. That is split into the 4 funds. So it would be split between general fund, street fund, water fund, sewer fund, in a logical way that makes sense based on the uses of those funds. So the DPW building is not just sewer, it's not just water, it's split between the workers, and the equipment and everything is split between those 4 funds. So therefore all 4 funds will be supporting it to an extent. So we worked with administration to look at the general fund and streets fund, which is like just a lot of it has to do with budgeting and how much you can afford out of those funds, knowing that we are severely limited in taxing ability and revenue ability to get more revenue from those funds. You guys all know, like, the Act 51 streets money from the state does not cover what it needs to be covered. So we have to be careful about over leveraging those funds, making sure that you don't just, all your taxing money isn't isn't used for this project. You gotta do other stuff in the general fund and other stuff with the street fund money. So, it does seem reasonable to allocate $45,000 of the payment for each of those funds. We are assuming that that is gonna go up slightly over time. You can see that, this is obviously just an estimate, but when the bond sale is done and it's approved by the city, we'll send a finalized schedule that says this is what the fund payments are every year, based on the discussion that we have with the city and making sure that that looks good. On a side note, you can change those whenever you want. Like there will be an initial schedule based on, hey, if the payments are $300,000, this is where we think the bonds are going to be paid out of every fund every year. But that is ultimately at the discretion of the city to change them as they see fit, as cash flows are seen. Like if you have more money in the general fund that you want to kick in more payment from the general fund, that's perfectly fine. It's up to the city to budget in a way that makes sense for the bond payments. So you can see on there for instance, on fiscal year 23-24, the water and sewer fund are just shy of $105,000 for their first year payments. The anticipation is that their payments are actually going to go down slightly as the payments for the general fund and street fund goes up. The reason being is that we, based on the direction we're getting from the city with the USDA project that I'll talk about here in a second, the thinking is that the water and sewer fund is going to have enough other projects to fund over the next few years that you're going to need some sort of relief to make sure that we keep rates at a acceptable level here in the future. I know that that's been Commissioner Swem, we've just exchanged emails on that. We'll talk about that. We have like the 5-year plan updated that we'll talk about in terms of water and sewer rates. It is definitely, I mean, we have to try to keep rates as low as we can with the debt payments that are coming on, and this is one of the ways that we're trying to do that. Not so we don't. The main goal that I would say is like we're not going to issue this bond and just backload it and let the rest of the like 10-20 years from now just not deal with it until then. You are trying to deal with it right now and trying to make sure that it's in a better position financially in the future with the debt payments coming from water and sewer. So if you have any questions, obviously feel free to stop me as always, but I'm gonna move on to the water and sewer cash flows. So I will say actually before I do that, in the 30-year interest rate there, that is about a 4.4% interest rate, average you can call it. That is actually probably about, I'd say it's probably about a 1/4 point conservative right now. So this is not assuming like if you sold today, we probably have about 0.25% of cushion in there. So as long as rates stay within that, we will hit the budget that we're anticipating. So let's move on to, let's talk about water first. So water, we have the 5-year plan updated. On the first page there is the update from what's the comparative detail operating expenses. I don't think I'm telling anybody that something they don't know, but expenses are up. You can see in the orange boxes on the very bottom, the anticipated budget year over year is going to be up approximately 10%, primarily due to salaries and fringe benefits increases in the fund. That obviously puts us in a little bit of a pinch point for the cash flow. If you look at page 2, that is the cash flow for the next 5 years. We are still recommending the same rate track that has been talked about for the past couple of years, which is 8% increases across the board on all rates. So that right now, if you look at the blue box under 21-22, your typical homeowner for a city resident that on just the water side, we'll talk about sewer, is paying $37.90 per month. That increase for 22-23 would increase their bill about 40 cents. So, not anything, excuse me, it would be 40 cents plus the commodity. So it'd be $3 in total, excuse me. I mispronounced that. It would be $3 in total. The total increase overall would be $3. So overall, we got to talk about sewer, but this comes down to a number of different reasons, and we'll talk about cash flow, but essentially it comes down to we have a lot of debt coming on that has to be paid from water and sewer. Water and sewer is going to be paying for their portion of the DPW building bonds as long as those go forward. And then there's also the next project, which is the USDA project coming on after that. Water is anticipated to be $10.7 million, and that is obviously strictly estimate at this point. That interest rate is locked in as long as you stay below that. So that interest rate is locked in through USDA at 1.375. The concern basically is that if we go above that, now we're in a position where you have to borrow money at a higher interest rate. Does that work in the cash flow? It depends on how much happens, but that's the good news there is that if you continue on with the project for the water side and you stay below that, your interest rate is locked in until you close. So there's no concerns that as long as you show progress, that money is allocated in the federal budget for the city of Buchanan.
Can you tell me the percentage? I mean, I looked at the numbers, but what is the percentage of the water and sewer compared to the rest of like the general fund? Is it divided up 33% across the board? Just by what you were telling me, just off the top of my head, $100,000 out of water and sewer, and the payment's $300,000. So how did you come up with 33% of the DPW building being paid for by water and sewer?
Actually, it's 2/3 of the project is actually being paid for by water sewer, is the way it's proposed right now. That's one of my questions as well, actually, is how did we assess that water sewer under the DPW building only? How did we assess that 2/3 of that facility is used for water sewer purposes? That seems like an awful lot for number of employees and the equipment that does get used, considering wastewater is in a completely different facility.
Well, I didn't even see the 2/3 though, Patrick.
And it's 66% roughly is paid for out of water sewer.
Yep, so one third water, 1/3 sewer, 1/3 general/streets, essentially. It's within close to that. So part of it was feedback from the city, so I will have to say, like, I hope we have Heather or somebody can speak to this too, but a lot of it has to do with your cash flow. So it has to be reasonable in terms of how we come up with those estimates that come from each fund. But again, the city has to do its job to say it's reasonable to say 1/3 of this payment should come from water, 1/3 from sewer, 1/3 from general/streets. From there, it comes down to we help you with the cash flows. Does that work in the cash flows? Because it might be, for instance, that you say, well, streets, this is all streets, and we should pay 75% of this out of streets. Well, if streets can't afford that payment, you're in a spot where now it might logically think that it should come from streets, but you don't have the money to do that. So you're kind of weighing those two options of like, logically you can't just say, well, we think this should come from the DDA, and the DDA doesn't have anything to do with it, so you can't. It's those two things. You have to take the logics of who is using that DPW building and which funds should be impacted, and then marry it with how much money do you have to contribute from the funds to make sure that they line up and can afford to pay it.
Well, the water and sewer is the only thing that makes any money other than maybe the cemetery. I understand that, but
not revenue generating, though.
whatever.
But
It's
not making money. There's no profit.
Well,
but
okay,
yes.
layman's terms, it generates money. It's the only
generates
thing
money,
that
yes.
generates money. It charges a fee for services it gives.
Correct.
Whatever way you want to put it. The thing about it is, can we, when budget time comes up, I mean, $250,000 for marijuana, sales tax, $170,000 a year from permit money, and all these other things that we're spending money on, can we adjust that budget so that we can adjust that? And I mean, I know this, you may not have the answer for this, and excuse me for asking, but I really don't like the idea. And I mean, this goes back, and I want the general public to understand this goes back 45 years, no preparation. Zero preparation as far as doing it, saving any money. But my point being, going forward, can we adjust the budget and ask everybody in the city to tighten up their belts because we have all these other projects that are coming up for water and sewer?
So I will say yes, but there's a qualifier. Yes, but you initially have to have a long-term plan in order to sell this debt. Your
Okay.
long-term plan.
Okay,
is
I understand.
that,
I do
but
understand.
if you have a short, like, because you can't count on the marijuana to be there every year.
Right, okay.
But if you have 300,000 for marijuana and you say, hey, we're gonna, as part of this year's plan, we're gonna take the money from the marijuana money, then
Okay.
that's perfectly fine. But in order to sell the bonds, you have to have a long-range plan to say, this is where it's going to most likely come from, barring the one time, or it might be an extended period of time, budgetary, like, changes with marijuana or whatever it may be.
Is there any
So-
penalty for paying them off early?
No, but when you sell this type of debt, a 30-year debt, you're not gonna have a prepayment option for 10 years.
Okay, so you gotta pay 10 years.
You have to pay the debt as is for 10 years, and then you have the option to refinance or pay it off after that.
Okay,
So, yep.
thank you.
Did you have anything on the, okay. So, continuing on with the water fund, the numbers in pink at the bottom, well, first off, the yellow ones. So the yellow ones is what I was just talking about. That's the DPW payment being layered into the cash flow. So that's included in the cash flow, and you can see it goes down roughly $1,000 every year in terms of the payment that it's allocated to the water fund. The pink ones are ultimately, as the financial advisor, that's still the concern that I have out there is, like, I know where construction costs are going. We talked about the DPW cost has risen over the past couple of years. That is why, like, number one reason why in my opinion, you still have to keep to the same plan that we're discussing, that we've discussed for the past couple of years. And we can discuss from once you know the actual project costs of that USDA bond and you have decided whether or not to move forward. We can obviously update it at that time to make sure that this is still reasonable for forevermore from there. But you're still on estimates for what is a major project of 10.7 million on water. So I don't think it's smart. I think you got to stick with the current plan for the next couple of years. Until that's bid, and then we'll refresh the numbers again when we have the final construction costs and everything for the USDA project. One of the questions that was talked about with Commissioner Swem and Heather was the cash flow overall. You'll see that in the water fund in 24-25 and 25-26, there is a negative cash flow. So under the pink boxes, there is a negative cash flow for those 2 years. Ultimately, our job as the financial advisor is to make sure that you live within certain means, and then there's hardline things that you have to stay within. So you have to make your bond payments. You cannot go below zero in terms of your cash and investments, but there's discretion about where you keep your cash and investments balance overall and how you run the system overall, making sure that you live within certain rules of not being revenue generating, you're being regulatory in nature, and you're bringing in the revenues that you need to operate the system. You're not trying to save up millions of dollars for the future. So overall, that you can see that the unrestricted cash and investments, which is at the very bottom, goes from approximately $1.6 million at the end of the last fiscal year, 6/30/2022. In 5 years, the estimate is that it will be at $1 million and change. So this is one of the ultimate questions is, you're still on estimates. This is why I still qualify big time, because we don't know where the USDA project fits, how it's going to be, it's going to fit in financially. If we're going to ultimately go forward with that amount of money, we still have decisions to make as a community, as a commission on that. But ultimately, and from my point of view, that is a smart way to use some of your resources to keep your rates somewhat lower than you need them to be. I think that what this does is it can show, I don't pretend to know the situations of ratepayers, but we are not trying to save a bunch of money and just not use the funds there. Ultimately, I believe that you're doing what you can to keep the rates at what we talked about for many years now, and access the reserves when you need to access them to keep the rates in line. So it uses about $600,000 of your reserves over the next 5 years to make sure that we don't have to go higher on rates. So that's the water fund. If there's no questions on that, I will go over sewer. On the sewer side, roughly the same discussion. On page 1 is the operating, same type of discussion. The operating expenses has increased in 2023. Page 2 there, same rate discussion as well. The recommendation is for 8% increases on sewer. It's for this, I'll get to the cost here in a second. It's for the same reasons at the very bottom. The yellow box is the DPW bonds sewer portion. The pink box is the estimated USDA portion of the project, which is $7.49459 million. It is locked in at the same interest rate of 1.375. This one is in a little bit different situation as the water. We're actually anticipating to add a little bit to the reserves over the next 5 years with that cash flow. There's a little bit less big cash funded capital improvement projects that are coming on the sewer side. It's mostly going to be the debt issue from the USDA that's projected here in the next few years. That's based on obviously engineer estimates. It is a little bit different rate picture on the sewer side. So on the water side, you're actually below the state average. So the state average, theoretically, a couple years ago is $40 a month. It's probably closer to like 45 now with the lead and copper rule compliance. So we have seen that the average bill for water has crept up to $45 a month with the implementation of state regulation on lead service lines. On the water side, so as you recall, on the water, the water rate was going to go for this is the typical homeowner. It depends on how much water you use, but it's going to go from like 38 to like 41. So you're going to be hovering around just below that state average on the water side. On the sewer side, the typical homeowner's bill is $61.86. An 8% increase across the board would increase that to $66.81, which is $5, give or take. On the sewer side, to be perfectly blunt, I mean, it is on the higher side across the state. I would say a lot of that is due to borrowing and capital improvements, which is, I'm not going to sugarcoat it too much. I mean, a lot of it has to do with you've done a lot of improvements. You're doing a lot of improvements next year. You're doing a lot of improvements now. You did a lot of improvements with the oxidation ditch. There's a lot of debt that's been accumulated that you have to pay. And so that has impacted the rates. On the sewer side, the average rate is usually like $5 higher. Depends on the community, but it's around $50 is the average rate. So you're just a little bit above that on the medium high side. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we have a couple communities that are over $100 a month for sewer. Sewer can be very, very expensive if you have a system that's overbuilt or something. So you guys are kind of in the medium to high range on sewer for cost for the
Can
typical
I ask you
homeowner.
where you got the I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead. Where'd the salary numbers come from? Because we've only got 2 sewer employees, and I think we only got 1 water employee. And I don't think we've ever had more than 2 employees, you know, and I was thinking, well, that's all the benefits, but no, you got a line for fringe benefit. We're paying over $540,000, and, you know, is that coming, are we paying other people out of that?
I have to defer to city staff.
I can answer that. So when the Department of Public Services employees, who are typically sometimes having their wages allocated to streets or buildings and grounds, depending on what they're doing, if they're doing sewer-related work, checking sewer mains, that sort of thing, their hourly wage and their salary gets billed to that line as well. So anytime they're doing anything sewer-related, that portion of their salary gets coded to that line.
But I don't think they're doing that much work for water and sewer. That's my question. I don't see where they're doing that much work for water and sewer.
So in the past, it's been based on percentage allocations, based on estimates. So we've just always carried those forward in the budget.
With these projections that you have here, within the next 4 years though, we're gonna be bumping our sewer rates up to, you know, close to that $100 mark, correct?
At the end of the,
For what I'm looking at here.
correct,
26,
yeah, at the
27.
end of the projection there, I think where it's the 26, 27 maybe?
Right.
or-
Yeah, 26, 27,
3 to 4 years.
the typical homeowner's bill would be $90.88. That is correct.
Just for sewer.
Just for sewer, yes, that is correct.
Super, yeah. It doesn't include the water that is.
So, yeah, the hardest part for me, when I did the math, and you've got that email from me, is that, you know, it's hard to picture when anybody's sitting in this room, when we say, oh, it's only an 8% increase, what's 8% on the 8% the year forward, 8% on the 8% on the 8% on the 8%, et cetera, et cetera. You know, over a 5-year window on the proposal, and the USDA stuff has to be done. There's no way around the USDA component of this. And the community, we're gonna ask the community to have a 43% increase in their water sewer rates over the next 5 years. And that's gonna be hard on a lot of people. And I know you don't have the answer to that, so you're working with the numbers you have. And a 34% reduction of unrestricted cash. And the average user that uses 4,000 gallons is gonna have a bill of $143. And I use twice that in my house. So that's what we're being asked to approve of here.
So as a, just as a recap, a lot of that has to do with the debt payments, which, so on sewer side, the total debt payments, if you were to approve the DPW and the USDA, the DPW is pretty much, it's locked in as far as I know in terms of the project costs.
That's correct, we
Yeah,
have
so,
had that, yep.
The USDA is really the big if there on the estimate, but those combined debt payments will be almost $1 million or a little bit over $1 million. So that's the reason that we've had to increase rates in the past, 5 or so years. So that's a significant debt payment to have on water and sewer. I know we traded emails on it. This is just for information. There is no limit on debt. It is completely up to the community and ultimately the commission and staff to approve what is right for the community. Water and sewer, it's a needed essential service. It's completely up to you to decide what is needed project wise and rate wise to pay for essential service. So.
I don't have to be happy about it, but this is 50 years of neglect, really. It's what it boils down to, because when I was on the commission before, they didn't want to raise the rates at all.
But when you did the oxidation ditch, didn't you have to agree to raise the rates X amount for so long in order to borrow that money?
Yes, so essentially there's a difference in the security. So the oxidation ditch is what's called a revenue bond. You are required by law to charge enough rates to cover your operating and the debt payment for that bond, which is $550. Looks like $550 or so. That you can't do anything. Like the commission is tied. You're required to do that. The DPW is the one that because that is going to be backed by the general obligation of the city. That one you have. That's why you can allocate it to the different funds. And you do the cash flow as needed. So you allocate it to water, you allocate it to sewer, you allocate it to general, you allocate it to streets. Whatever you think is reasonable and whatever can be paid out of the budgets of all of those funds, then it is completely up to you. USDA will be the same thing as the oxidation ditch. If you move forward with whatever borrowing you do with USDA, they're going to have the same covenant as the oxidation ditch that you are required to set your rates high enough to pay them back.
When will that be paid off? Do you know?
USDA is a 40-year commitment.
And DPW is
No, I mean our oxidation ditch.
Oh, the oxidation, it was 2018. Ooh, that's a good
Was
question.
that part of, that was part of the new sewer plant, wasn't it?
That was, yes.
Change order for it.
I think that was a 30-year.
I think
Was
so.
it a 30?
I
Was it a 30
Yeah.
or 20?
I'm almost positive that was a
Typically
30-year.
30. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You did bring up a good point earlier, Dan, on those expenses that just made me think of something. When, and this is probably an answer, question for Heather, when was the last time we did an assessment on the expenses of the enterprise fund? Probably not, since you've been here, I imagine, right?
Well, what do you mean by an assessment? I mean, we review expenditures
So
all the
like when,
time.
I mean, I wasn't on the joint water sewer board until recently, but usually the joint, my understanding, the joint water sewer board is gonna go in over a certain amount of time, review that expenses are being allocated appropriately to the fund, since it's supposed to be a self-sufficient, self-sustaining fund, which is twofold into why I asked the question earlier about how we came up with the 66% piece. Is that truly reflective of what the enterprise fund really uses? Or is it fitting within the rules of the bond, but not the enterprise fund? Tough question, I get.
Well, it fits within the rules of both. I mean, it fits within the rules of the requirements of the bond, and it fits within the rules of the enterprise fund. But it's strategically formulated to be reasonable. It fits the reasonability standard, but it's strategically utilizing funds that are less restricted in a way. It's allowing us to reserve our flexibility with general fund as much as possible, since those are unrestricted funds. Anytime you can spend a restricted fund on the purpose for which it's restricted for and save unrestricted funds, it's strategically a better decision, because then you have more flexibility. It's somewhat akin to liquidity, but not exactly on par. But should you choose thereafter, as was mentioned, if we make an assessment later that, look, we're doing okay in our general fund, we would like to supplement those payments, we can choose at that time to do so, but we don't have our hand being forced. Whereas if it was the other way around, our hands are more tied. So this allows more flexibility.
I would think this would be done at budget time too, wouldn't it?
Correct, absolutely.
It's one of those though, right? If you gotta be incredibly disciplined to say, I'm not gonna spend the money somewhere else, cause there's a million needs in this community. And if we allow that to happen in sewer, the reality is probably, we'll probably keep it there, I would imagine.
Something else is gonna break before that
Yeah,
too.
and need a street sweeper or something like that, and it's easy to commit.
But what you're saying is, that so even if we were to get $500,000 in marijuana revenue for the next 5 years and set it aside to use it for infrastructure costs, we couldn't adjust the payments for 10 years? Is it?
Correct. You could not adjust the bond payments for 10 years. That is correct. So you could adjust what fund is paying the debt payment.
Right.
So for instance, like you could say we're going to pay the $300,000 out of general this year, and then not take the money from streets and water and sewer, and keep them a little bit dry for that year. But you can't adjust the debt payments after it's sold for 10 years.
Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing though, is it?
That
I mean, unless you win the lottery. and
No,
it's
I mean,
$1
I-
billion.
That's, yeah.
$4 billion worth.
Right.
You just, word goes by
I mean, the
word,
sad
so-
part is, I don't know that there's another alternative to get some of the pipes that are collapsed fixed.
There isn't.
I mean, there really isn't.
There isn't.
I mean, this should have been planned, like you said, 50 years ago, and
I agree.
we're
Well,
playing catch-up.
unfortunately, that's the whole problem with this whole project. It wasn't done, it wasn't set aside. Now we're strapped with it, and there's nothing we can do. I mean, monetarily or anything else. And where that should have been done in previous years, it hasn't been.
For me, it's decrease the debt exposure that we're setting the DPW up for, specifically the funding that's gonna come out of water sewer. And take a good hard look at your budget and, like Dan said earlier, tie your belt straps and cut things, because
Well,
just
eventually,
because we can't
you
get
have
loan
to start
doesn't mean
making
we
cuts. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
we
all you have to do.
We
I
have
mean,
to, and we can't keep going back to the citizens, and the people that hurts the most are the people that can't afford it the least when it comes to water bills.
Have you got any good news?
Yeah. The data's
I
great.
tried to layer in the interest rate thing.
Yeah.
The interest rates
That is
have.
a
You should have,
great
you should have
So-
ended with that.
Yeah.
That is great
I
news.
was just saying that.
So a reminder, the interest rates are a little,
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing, I would say, I mean, you're doing what you can to limit the rate. I mean, there was a portion of time where we were considering having to adjust the rates more.
Right.
because the interest rates were going against us rapidly. So I was trying to figure out how to come back to the commission to say it's 10% or more. So
It was looking bad.
that hopefully will, and cross our fingers, it's gonna stay in, you need it to stay until February 28th if you move forward.
That's
with
when
the
you're gonna
study.
lock in on February 28th?
That's when you lock in the rate.
We got one Fed meeting between now and then.
And then, I mean, again, like, if you hit that February 28th meeting and with the DPW building, your exposure is very limited as long as you keep the USDA bonds reasonable. Because again, those are already locked in interest rate wise, as long as you stay below your allocated amounts. If you can get more money, but it will be more,
Expensive
the interest
to
rate
borrow.
will be higher, because
Right.
they'll allocate it at today's interest rates, but, that's, the risk goes down a lot if we can get to February 28th with, and we're doing it as quickly as we can. It's not like you're delaying until then. There's a process that has to be done. You have to get the rating, you have to do the official statement, there's pre-sale, there's all these processes that have to be done in sequential order, and then you can get to the sale. So we can't unfortunately say, oh, let's lock it in tomorrow, or
Right.
you're doing as quickly as we possibly can to get to that, so.
And what you need us to approve tonight, does that have an impact on the USDA bonding or just the DPW bonding?
I don't know, I don't think there's anything to approve.
Oh, we have a
I think it's just
resolution request on here.
Different resolutions, I think that's for.
Am I reading the wrong
Oh,
one?
I saw there was a,
From,
Yeah, that's
from,
actually
it was from Roger,
is that for the DPW?
It is.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
Question
Yeah,
wasn't
so,
for you
yeah,
guys.
Right.
the resolution, that's from Roger Swetch, who's your bond attorney on the project. That's to move forward from the legal side, so
Okay.
essentially, if you decide to move forward with that, the handshake agreement, if you call it, is that we will raise rates 8% with the budget.
Okay.
Well, we do have the money. I mean, as bad as everybody's gonna cry about it, we might not have the money. I mean, we could be in a position where we didn't have the money to do it.
What do you
I'm
think?
trying to put a positive twist
No,
on
you're
this.
right. I mean, I
Wait,
think you're right.
We could be in a position where we couldn't get the money.
Oh, we have the ability to
Or-
borrow.
or the
Yeah, you have
We
the
don't have
ability
the
to borrow
money,
the
we have
money
the ability
to
to
get it
borrow.
done at a
I
reasonable.
mean, because some communities are in that position.
Right.
We don't have a building now. So, I mean, we could be in a position with no building.
And interest rates could be where they were a year ago.
Right.
Look on the bright side.
I'm
guys.
trying to turn
I
on
can
the
borrow as
sunshine
much
for you,
money as
buddy,
I
'cause-
want, I heard tonight, so, interesting, yeah, that's one of the good things, alright. Cool.
Anything else?
I don't think-
Okay.
I want to say thank you, Andy, but
Thank you, no, it is a big thank you, that was a lot of work that you did.
yeah, no, we appreciate,
appreciate it.
we appreciate what you're doing.
Yep.
Would the commission desire any additional questions related to the resolution, or, okay, does not appear so.
I don't.
Thank you.
Okay, all right,
Thanks, Andy.
thank you.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item B. Mark Seaman of Point Blue is here to talk to us about the demolitions of the old feed mill and the Baroda Tire 2 properties. Hi.
I'm not sure what, Heather asked me to come out and answer questions you might have. I know we prepared a couple proposals for the demolition of the two sites, the old feed mill. And I apologize, I'm losing my voice here. So if I fade out, I do apologize. And following up such a heavy topic, dang. There's demolition of the feed mill and then demolition of the Baroda Tire 2 site. We provided some proposals back in August, and I know there's a couple questions and there's some ideas that were being floated around as far as some of the things that might be able to be done, and I guess I'm here to answer questions about both those projects, thoughts or concerns you might have, or what the approach is. I don't know if have they been provided with the...
They have, yes,
Okay,
correct.
okay. So I'm really here to answer questions that you guys might have. I don't have a good dog and pony. I have lots of material to review if I need to.
You just heard the discussion about the bonds and how much money we're spending.
I know, and I'm here to spend
So,
more money. I'm so
what
sorry.
can the city do without your services? And I'm asking you that straightforward.
Sure.
Can we do this without your services?
I mean, you could. We're providing a service that's going to outline things very specifically, identify the hazardous waste that need to be handled appropriately, document that everything is done the way it should be done, and provide a construction summary report for each of the sites. I know some discussion was brought up about funding mechanisms. Unfortunately, with the state of Michigan, there is grant money out there and available. However, without a shovel-ready project, a developer coming in, it's hard to be competitive for those types of monies that would be available now in a grant situation. It doesn't take away your opportunity to do a TIF capture. If you want to do a brownfield plan, all these costs would be eligible for recapture through tax increment financing. Clearly, you're not paying any taxes on this right now, so there is a substantial increase depending on what kind of development comes in. Matter of fact, costs that led up to this, the BEA that we did here last year for you guys, the original work back in 2019 for the pre-demolition assessment of the mill property, those would be eligible costs as well. So there's some ability to recapture some of the expenditures you would have into this, as well as some of the future costs with the demolition. The only negative is, if you do that, that's one of the tools that you want to try to entice developers to come in the first place. And you're taking away maybe your general fund revenues to repay a environmental cost. So it's a give and take, but it's something you can consider by all means, and we can help you down that path.
I think in a lot of, like, a good portion of this, right, is also the end testing to make sure that when the work is completed, it meets the developmental standards that we're trying to get, which most likely, since you did that work for us in the past, you'd be doing anyways.
Right. Yeah, the mill property is a little bit different than the Broda Tire site. The Broda Tire site is a LUST site. It's a leaking underground storage tank site. There are remediation activities that are being undertaken at that site by the liable party. Those are being funded by insurance monies for petroleum releases exclusively. So it's unfortunately not eligible for demolition of the building.
Sure.
However, with the consideration of demolition of the building, it has actually opened up some opportunities for us to be a little more aggressive with our remediation plans for remediating the soil at that site. Now, likely the site's going to be closed through a deed restriction, institutional controls restricting the use of the water. Not like a lot of the overwhelming deed restrictions that are present on a number of the properties in the community. This would be very specific to groundwater usage and digging, but realistically, most of the digging should already be done. This should be a shovel-ready project for a developer to come in. Residential, commercial, shouldn't be a limitation on that.
And you'd be handling all the certification checking of those contractors, including the
Right.
silos at the
We
feed
would be
mill?
preparing demolition specifications that very clearly identify all the hazardous waste, all the hazardous materials, quantities, units, et cetera, where those need to go. We would oversee that that's done properly. I think we had 25 days budgeted for on-site inspection services, and then preparation of a report that identifies that the site's ready for restoration. Obviously, on the front end of this, discussion with community leaders about some of the specifics. I know, like I said, there's a couple different ideas being floated around for reuse of some of the materials, some of the buildings. I'm not sure, but that's certainly something we can talk about and hit head on.
I mean, do you see any issues with that?
You know, as long as
Be honest.
as long as you know, everyone's insurance is in place, and the people who might be doing something that's a little bit involved is capable of doing it. I mean, you know, discussion of moving very large pieces of structure down, was it 933 in Niles or something to another location. That's a liability we're going to want to make sure is very well quantified and understood by everyone, because the contract would ultimately be with you and the contractor, the demo.
Right.
So there'd need to be an understanding.
It's a
there
very
who's
large
responsible.
company. It's an extremely
Good,
large
good.
company. So I mean, it's not like somebody's moving out to their farm.
On a flatbed.
Right,
With a
no.
broken axle.
What do you normally come up against in granaries? I mean, as far as hazmat? I mean, I know some of it's fairly flammable, but you shouldn't
Right.
really be anything
No,
else.
It's a lot of just quantifying the materials that are out there. I know there's some asbestos that needs to be handled appropriately. There's also some due care obligations with regards to some soil that exceeds direct contact. We have arsenic present in shallow subsurface soil, or shallow surface soils that exceed non-residential criteria. So those should be dealt with as well, and documented that was dealt with appropriately.
The asbestos is in the mill.
Yeah, not a lot. I think probably less than 2,000 square feet.
Pipe wrap.
No. Some transite, I think, some other materials. This was 2019, I apologize.
No, that's fine. I just figured, well, it could be anything. It could be linoleum, it could be.
Mhm. But yeah, no, I think it was some transite and some other materials. I don't remember any pipe wrap.
So the time between now and August, where you been?
busy, running around, chasing my tail. No, we were just waiting. I wasn't sure, you know, we were coming into the winter season. I wasn't sure where things might be with you guys, and we're just available.
A couple questions, if I may,
Sure.
that I wanted to clarify. So, obviously, we were discussing the potentiality of outside third party to the city being interested in reuse of some of the steel structure. Would that be coordinated then under the purview of these agreements, or would that be a separate issue?
It would be incorporated in the agreements somehow. We'd have a good understanding on the front end. And the ultimate contractor would be doing the demolition. That would need to be integrated with their contract, because they would ultimately be the ones to make sure that this is done appropriately.
Okay. And would any of this observation include making sure that the demolition is handled in whatever specified manner that you guys recommend, or is that something that the city would be in charge of ensuring that component?
No, we would be doing that. We'd be on
doing
site.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
And would there be any pest management prior to demolition that would be covered by you guys, or would you recommend that we consider that
You know,
separate?
rodents?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard concerns from neighbors
You
that,
know,
which I can see occurring potentially.
Yeah, I know when we did the inspection back in 2019, it was pretty lively there,
I
obviously,
can
as you
imagine, yeah.
So there's obviously some waste issues that are gonna be needed, as well as some of the fertilizer and some of the disposal things that are gonna be required as a hazardous waste. Specific, I mean, certainly going into it, contractor's gonna need to know this is gonna be an issue.
Okay.
That would be clarified and brought up. But yeah, no, I appreciate that, because, yeah, that was.
Yeah, I just
it
didn't want
was-
that to be like a
It was like that
surprise
one
at
of
any point.
oh, God, was it the Raiders of the Lost Ark with the floor that's moving? It was, yeah, a little bit interesting.
And the only other component, obviously, there's the railroad issue there. That's something that I would assume be mentioned
Yep.
in docs, and that would be insured that way. Perfect.
Yeah,
Just
there'd be
wanted to verify.
appropriate, yep, accommodations from that.
So I have a question actually for Rich on this one. I think I know the answer, but I'll ask anyways. $30,000 to run this project, critical identified site for the city for redevelopment. Seems to me like a good use of the cannabis funding that we set aside for economic development. Being this is your territory, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree. You know, I mean, I think that the question was asked, can we do it alone? I don't think that's best practice. I think relying on people who do this for a living to give us the roadmap to get this property back on the tax rolls and make sure that all the city's liabilities are covered. And, you know, in terms of if we do want to go down this road of carving out an alternative with these silos being removed, you know, certainly that's an added expense, and my question is, who would bear that expense?
Great
That's
question.
got to be something negotiated with the prospective purchaser, which, you know, there's a lot of time and energy and extra work involved in that discussion. So that's why I just want to make sure that piece is being managed. You know, see, for us to add we could bid it. You know, we could add that alternate in the bid and see how it comes back.
I mean, I personally feel better hearing that they're gonna be in control of that as well. I don't see the city having the expertise to oversee that project.
Yeah, we definitely don't have any demolition experts that
Right.
could field those questions.
And
yeah.
actually, I love the idea of using the money we've already set aside for economic development too. I mean, I don't think there's any
Yeah,
better
it's very
economic development
fitting.
than making that shovel ready.
And it fits the purpose of what we set aside for
It does, I agree.
It's also about relationship. You know, we feel good working with Mark. He has experience in working in Buchanan, and we have other properties that are in the same category that we're going to need to work on. We can only just get better and replicate kind of recipe for success.
Right.
What type of use would you envision for that property? I didn't ask you about that. Is it residential, multifamily, or is it
No,
commercial, industrial?
I think some kind of job creation. I think it's poised at the gateway of Buchanan,
Okay.
kind of calling to the western gateway that isn't right now the best front porch look for Buchanan, but I think something that created jobs, whether it's small technology, but I wouldn't limit. I think that if a winery wanted to come in there, that would be an interesting interesting proposal to contemplate.
Commercial's definitely gonna give you the bigger bang for your buck on tax capture if that's the route you go.
How, is Heather, I mean, I've got the number of the gentleman that wanted the silos, so I'm more than willing to give that to you. And I don't even know how that works or how that should work, or if I should personally interfere.
I've already given his contact information to Heather.
Okay.
To try and set up a meeting with him, Flatwater Farms, and Mark.
'Cause
We're
that's
just
supposed to be
waiting on
no
this
cost to
decision
us.
tonight to move forward with that.
Yeah.
That was the understanding anyhow. I mean, it was just an initial chat, so we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But any money that we can save, we need to.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
I know
Well, it may-
contractors are gonna be recycling a lot of that metal too, so
Right.
there's gonna be a cost savings with some of that. So losing some of that metal that would be eligible for recycling credit would be removed. But, again, if it's a reuse of something that's aesthetically nice and gives some legacy aspect to it, there's a benefit to that, I see that.
Right.
It just needs to be very clearly understood in the
Yeah.
front end and who's doing what.
Yeah.
So there's not a silo rolling off.
Well, it's great,
flatbed
it's
truck
great to
into
hear
the-
that from you. I'm glad you're involved, and
Thank you.
I look forward to moving forward with you,
Okay.
actually.
How soon can we start?
As soon as you want to. My senior engineer is in Seattle right now. He just watched the Rams Seahawks game yesterday, so he's not available to be here. But he would be the one that would coordinate schedules and get that first kickoff meeting going as far as everyone's desires, plans, et cetera.
So
I
do we
think
need
it'd be
to
ready
ask
for-
Heather, when can we start?
Well,
I think we just
I'm
make-
getting ready to ask one of you if you'd like to make a motion to agree to what we're discussing here and using economic development funds to move forward with Mark's proposal.
I'll make the motion for our maximum guaranteed price. I think it's 32,000 was the combined number, just shy of that roughly.
31,800 is
3,180 is for the two spec packages. There's a $3,100 pre-demo assessment that needs to be done at the Broda Tire 2 site. That has not been done yet.
Yeah.
Maximum
right.
guaranteed price,
35-ish.
35,000 for now, we'll say. I think that covers us. Yeah, 35 is
35.
what I'm making the motion for.
37.
36. Is it 40? To move forward with the proposals that was provided to the commission
Thank you.
via Point Blue.
Thank you. Is there support?
This is,
Can we have roll call, please?
Bianski,
yes.
Money,
Yes.
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon.
Yes.
Carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to reports by departments, committees, and boards. The community development report by Mr. Murphy. And Mr. Flanner, who I think he's deflecting.
pointing to me. I think I had George here to help me, Dr. Chair.
You don't want to spend any money, do you?
No, I'm gonna give you all kinds of money, it's not gonna cost you a dime. I'll let you know what's going on.
All right.
I'm chairperson of the Bucoy Creek Trail Group. I have with me tonight 5 members from our board: George Burgoyne, Sean Ward, Jan Jacobs, and Don Brooks. And we're here tonight to encourage the city to enter the contract for engineering services with Whiteman and Associates. Answering Darma's question, the trail board in the city went out and got grants, so there's no city money being spent. The total cost of the project is about $990,000. We got grants to cover all of those. On top of that, we raised over $200,000 in local funds. We went to all different companies and individuals, whatever, and we raised over $200,000 that will go towards this project. So, with that, if there are any questions about engineering or whatever, Steve from Whiteman and Associates is here to answer your questions. I'm just here to deliver good news. We had a great relationship working with the city and Whiteman and Associates, and we're looking forward to moving forward with this project as soon as or if you grant that contract. I believe we're set to begin in the spring. And this will take us from Shermer Parkway parking lot where we're currently trail ends. It'll take us out to River St. Joe. Part of that project was when they just redid the bridge. They made the sidewalks ADA compliant at Berrien County cost, not our cost. which was about another $90,000. So it's a win-win for everybody. It's not costing you guys a dime. So I don't think is it costing them a dime or 11 cents or what? No, no, it's not costing you a dime. Anything else, Heather?
I just want to personally thank all the members of the board that are here today, and you as well, Jerry. It's unbelievable the amount of incredible work that this board has been able to do as a volunteer organization, and I'm extremely proud to have seen and borne witness to what a great thing you guys have accomplished. So thank you so much.
We have a hard-working board that
Absolutely.
we get a lot of projects done, and we get an awful lot of support from the DPW. All of us, as you can see, are getting a little white-haired, so we depend on Mike a lot, and Mike gives us great support in tackling small projects, large projects, and we appreciate the DPW also.
The last time you were here, you gave Rich a hand when you announced that we'd gotten that grant, but since you have all these board members here, I'd like to give you guys a hand. Thank you, Jerry.
I did have a question, Jerry, and this was posed to me by a equestrian group. Is there ever going to be horse accessibility on the trail?
They have come to us, and they've also gone to the state. I think at this point, it's non-motorized, but with the asphalt and everything, I'm not sure we're
And the
going to
cleanup?
allow that. We have not come to a conclusion on that on the board, but I don't know. I just think it'll be a tough one. So I don't know the answer to that. We could support what they wanted. What they came to us for was they wanted support to create a trail down on that national resources that they bought on the river to make that equestrian friendly. And we did support that. But to include it in our trail, that's going to be a tough one. So
Okay.
You'd have to put some really big doggy bags out.
there you go. Yeah. It's not like they were going to clean it up either.
Right.
I heard that was a city commission job. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
I'll get right on that.
Dan's gonna volunteer for that.
We're already cleaning up enough of that.
There's enough.
Sorry.
Nice play.
True. Very true, but it was a bad joke.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
This is money. I would move to approve the trail extension proposal from Whiteman and Associated as presented.
Oh, no, go ahead. You support it?
Yeah, I'll support it.
Before we vote, I want to thank Whiteman too, because they have done a lot of work for the trail, so thank you very much.
So,
Actually, it was my colleague Susanna. I'm just here in absence, but.
You're here to
you can
get the
take credit
applause.
for it. I would.
Congratulations and thank you very much for your work. Okay, can we roll call, please?
Money,
Yes.
Swem,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes,
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski.
Yes.
Carries.
thank you. Thank you again.
Feels good when we can make something that does not cost us anything.
Yeah,
It's
right.
money out of our
If
pocket.
you lead with that.
It's a good day.
Big deal.
Jerry, have you ever raised money for sewer and water projects?
Yeah.
No, and I don't smoke marijuana either. I'm not helping you there. Sorry.
Okay.
Donation cans.
Let's move down to item B, the public safety report with the Chief Harvey Burnett.
Good evening. The first one is a very important movement that has to go through approval. As you know or may not know, each municipality is supposed to be responsible for creating a hazards mitigation plan. Hazard mitigation plans are very important as far as if there is any type of disaster response or anything like that. Hazards mitigation plans are part of what is needed to make sure that if we can deal with reducing the hazard to avoid problems in the future, you do that. But also, it's also a part of the Robert T. Stafford Act, which is part of our Emergency Management Act here in the state of Michigan, that says if you have a mitigation plan, you can apply for certain types of federal grants and funds through FEMA to get reimbursed or paid for and stuff like that. So what happened is, since each county or each jurisdiction that was responsible for that What the county did through the emergency management office is I said, okay, for Barron County, they took on the responsibility of doing that hazardous mitigation plan. The last time we did our hazardous mitigation plan was back in 2010 or something like that. It was a long time. So we forwarded that 700-page document to you. You didn't need to read it all. But the hazardous mitigation plan, we do need to adopt that. It was done multi-jurisdictionally throughout the county. And again, this ensures that if we do have some type of emergency that happens, some type of disaster, we are qualified for certain types of FEMA funding. But also, at the same time, the hazard mitigation plan allows us, if there's things that we need to mitigate to help reduce our susceptibility to some kind of hazard, we can qualify and apply for those kinds of grant funds and things. This has to be adopted by or before February 10th. And questions?
Questions?
I think it's just basically straightforward.
Someone like to make a motion?
Straightforward things.
I'll move to approve the 2022 Berrien County Multi-Hazard, Multi-Jurisdiction,
Jurisdictional plan?
plan as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
You got that, didn't you, Cal?
I got it.
You're
Thank
gonna
you.
write it like that, right? Okay. Yeah.
This is money I'll support.
Thank you. Can we have roll call, please?
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yes.
Money.
Yes.
Carries.
Thank you.
All right. And then moving on to the second is the need for a new police vehicle to replace one of our primary patrol units, 46-2. This car has been around since 2015. Unfortunately, this is one of our primary patrol units that we have to jumpstart to get going. And what that does, it provides or actually pushes us to not try to use that as much, because now we're putting more mileage on our other two primary patrol vehicles. I did provide for you all our capital improvement plan that outlines the police department's projected what we need to do over 6 years, so that way you kind of have an idea as you go into budget talks and things like that, what we need. Unfortunately, I wish patrol vehicles were really robust and could take all kind of stuff, but because of the nature of the job and that these cars are actually running pretty much 24/7 a day, and the need to be able to respond to emergencies, places the community at risk if we can't do that, as well as our own officers and things like that. So questions for you?
How many vehicles does the police department actually have? I asked this when I was commissioner before.
As far as vehicles, as far as having a vehicle or primary patrol, because you have to distinguish for me which is which.
Fill us in. Tell us. Tell us
Okay.
how many.
So I have
you-
3 primary patrol vehicles that are used primarily for what we do with responding, emergency response and everything else. Then those vehicles that are recycled out, they're used as utility vehicles.
Sorry to interrupt, but those 3 that you use right now, how old are they? Do you know the ages of those by any chance?
So the oldest
So we
is
can-
2015. That was the one that was supposed to be replaced a while ago. The newest one, 46.4, we just purchased, I think, 2020. Then
2 years old.
Right, 2019.
2019.
So, and then unfortunately, the other concern or issue that comes up, because there is a shortage of, I guess, materials and supplies to make patrol vehicles, it's about 30 weeks or more we have to put in an order now, and hopefully we may get a patrol vehicle by September, maybe October, and things. But yeah, so it's 3 primary patrol vehicles that do most of the work of patrolling and things.
Have we ever looked at anything other than a Ford or anything other than, 4-wheel drive, you got all-wheel drive Subarus, you got all-wheel drive Hondas. Front-wheel drive is pretty much just as secure as all-wheel drive. There's arguments both ways, but.
Yeah. State Police does testing on vehicles every year, and so they make recommendations, and usually, the Ford Interceptor is one of those that is pretty well. Plus, depending on the weather that we have around here, It's better to have an all-wheel drive than a four-wheel drive. The next vehicle that we could use is a Chevy Tahoe. They're more expensive than the Fords. And then, so we're just kind of trying to stay within an economic package.
So basically, the vehicle you're recommending is best practice, it's what's.
Best practice, right.
Okay.
As well as, you know, what we need for city patrolling.
What do you do, so what are you gonna do with the, sorry, I forgot the number of it. Yeah,
So usually what we'll do is we'll take that out of primary service and use as a utility vehicle, so our reserves can use it to take to, if we have to, provide them at events, traffic control, as far as, like Red Bud, Track and Trail, those kind of things. And since we don't have to use a primary patrol vehicle, if we have to send our officers to training, they can use the utility vehicle to transport, to go to training.
can you do me a favor?
Yes, sir.
If this gets approved, can we remove this white one that's sitting out here in the parking lot?
Oh, are you talking about
That's
the
Guy's car.
I know.
Well, that probably get recycled.
It probably wouldn't make
yeah,
Guy that
probably
upset if it
moving.
was gone.
Is this Owasso dealership that you mentioned
so,
here? Is that the only,
So that, the
Facility.
person that I recommended is, we've been working with that person for over 10 years as
Okay.
far as fleet management of getting primary patrol vehicles for police departments. We do talk to our other locals, but they have no experience in police, what we need as far as police package vehicles and things like that.
My only other question would be, when will you need another one?
According to my capital improvement plan, because of the way the next oldest vehicle, which is 46.7, which is now way over, actually now it's over 120,000 miles on it, would have been the next one. And according to the plan, I was trying to, at least those two, I think a break year, and then we replace the last one, 46.4, because that would be at that particular time, and then we would have a break for a couple of years before we started asking for a new patrol vehicle. So we're trying to, in our capital improvement plan, look at trying to maintain costs, but also what's necessary for fleet, as long as nothing bad happens. But we also usually lease these vehicles, so that way it's broken down into a 3-year lease, so it makes it easier to plan for a budget.
well, the other part of that is the odometer reads one thing, but the engine miles, you know, it may even have twice as many, you know, engine miles on them, as opposed to, or those are running miles,
Correct.
where the car sits idle.
Right, well, we
So,
have that, and then we also have the normal wear and tear and maintenance, because now we're at the point where these are out, all of them are out of warranty, and so the cost repairs are pretty much going up, and we just had to, I hate to say this, we had to replace a driver's seat vehicle in one of our primary patrol vehicles, but because of, it was like $4,000 just to replace that. And there's another car that's having the same issue. So it gets to be very expensive on our vehicle maintenance budget. And so we're trying to keep the cost down, but also make sure that we provide efficient response times, but also being able to do what you ask us to do.
So I don't have any other questions other than, you know, I've been on the record, I'm not a big fan of leasing anything. I think municipalities should be able to pay cash for their capital assets like this. I'm in favor, unless anybody wants to discuss that, I'd make a motion to purchase this out of cash instead of making a financing agreement.
I would like to know if there's any grants being looked at. You know, I mean, I'm really gonna keep pushing the grants from every
We look
direction.
at, yes, you know, so that's a good question. We look at grants, but unfortunately, getting grants for capital equipment
Okay.
is hard to get, and actually, they're kind of non-existent for
Okay,
patrol
that's
vehicles
fine,
and stuff
but
like that.
then, since you can't get it for this, do us all a favor and start finding grants for others. Cause,
Right.
I mean, I don't really wanna bring it up, but I'm gonna say it. You did get expanded into the police department, you got a lot bigger building now. And I'll just leave it at that. But, oh, there was one can we start getting a list from you, and I don't know if I'm out of line or not, of the citations that you hand out, cause they used to get published in the newspapers. And you could read who got tickets, you know. Why?
There's this thing called confidentiality, right?
They used to
And-
publish them, all you're doing.
No,
I'm just-
we can say, okay, and again,
We get a report like that, actually,
You-
that
as
says how many,
commissioners, you can
how many
get that
burglaries, how
report.
many,
Right.
you know, medical calls, how many.
Calls and everything like that. So
Yeah.
you do get a report,
We
but as
do
far
get
as
that report.
saying,
We do.
No.
Okay.
publishing a
Which I
list
think is
like
what you're
that,
really
Yeah,
asking for.
that's what I'm
right?
looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you guys
I
do
mean,
get
I don't
that
wanna
kind
put
of.
canceled checks on the wall, that's not what I'm looking for.
Okay. Yeah, no.
But I mean, I'd like the same thing for code enforcement too. I mean, as far as where we're handing out the citations, I wanna see some justification for the money we're paying, and I wanna see some movement on code enforcement, because code enforcement's always been a big beef for 30 years.
Okay, I can look at that. The caution I have to give for that is, the concern I always have with giving out arrest information like that is, how is that information going to be used? Because the concern is always one of, will it be used to discriminate against the population? And that's what we always get kind of hammered with. And so I have to kind of be careful about, okay, if we're saying, how many tickets are we issuing, is that going to show that we are showing some implicit bias
Right.
in things? And so we
See,
kind of
Harvey,
have
I'm
to
not
be
looking
careful.
for that at all.
Yeah,
You know,
but-
I mean, I'm looking for parking tickets.
I
I'm
know
looking
that's
for
what you're saying, but that's what
U-turns.
it could be interpreted by the public.
Right.
Um,
Are code violations on that list that we normally get? Is it? Okay.
Yes.
And also, just so you know, that annually, the police chief gives a report,
Yeah.
which includes all the citations,
Yep.
all the arrests, all the incidents that we've handled over the year. So Chief Burnett's going to be presenting that here probably in the next month or two, showing all the details of 2022.
I'd like to ask the city manager, do you have a recommendation about how to move forward with the purchase of a police vehicle?
I guess my biggest recommendation is just that we do move forward. I think either way is supportable in the budget, so it's really just a discretionary call by the commission.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there support?
This is money I'll support.
We have roll call, please?
Are you
Okay.
motioning to
Well-
pay for
Well, no,
all of
let's-
it, or
No, I was
finance?
just about to say, I want to restate my
Yeah,
motions
please.
for all of us. So I want to authorize to prepare the report, which I think we got most of that data, for us to make a cash purchase for the vehicle. So I don't know what the guaranteed maximum number is, because I'd have to go back and add everything up that you did. So, and once you have purchase agreement and the cost, we can sign off on that, but I just want to make sure it's paid in cash and not financed.
So you're okay with just it, but you want to see the report come back before you?
I think, well, that's what the financing motion reflects right here.
Okay,
So instead of it being financed, just
You want that,
as a
okay.
cash purchase.
as a cash, okay.
Are you still good with
And I
seconding
still
that?
will support
Okay.
that.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yes.
Money,
Yes.
Swem,
Yes.
carries.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item C, the Finance Department report.
You want me to go? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the first part of it is the revenue and expenditure report that Courtney prepared for you guys. If you have any questions, please email Deb and CC Courtney on it. The credit card policy draft, it's just a first draft. It's a pretty basic form. It keeps the form will stay in the city clerk's office. It's just pretty much a sign-out sheet, like, so if somebody's coming to get it. There is one amendment that I would ask you to make, and that's to add the Director of Public Works Services for a $5,000 credit. I forgot to add that line item in there when I was talking to Deb about it. And if there's any other things that you guys want, or you can keep the policy without the limit amounts in the insurance cards, and we can create something else. But I would recommend at least the attachment A of the credit card agreement, if that makes sense.
I thought you had DPW on there.
I didn't, I put public safety
Oh, okay.
and not public services.
So you're switching that? It's the
No,
same
I
as-
w-
Adding.
I
You're
think
adding a
adding
word?
public services as well at a $5,000 credit limit.
Motion with an amendment.
Well, I thought we pretty much understood that this was gonna, you have accounts everywhere.
Not everywhere with them.
Well, I mean, how often, I mean.
Quite a bit.
After looking back at who was using them the most, Mike, I would definitely amend it to have Mike on there more.
So how many cards are we cutting in total?
So it would be 6 cards total.
Or that we're dropping? No.
We're dropping, there's a 15 total now,
15,
so,
so we're
yeah.
dropping 2/3 off.
We're dropping a lot.
Okay.
I mean, there was serious discussion to go to all corporate cards.
Right. But we felt it necessary and easier for the city manager, the city treasurer, the director of public safety, and the director of public services to have those cards in case of emergency. Or if they're like, so if Mike's in South Bend picking up a part and he doesn't have a certain account at a different place, he would be able to use it instead of having to come back to the city hall to get from the city treasurer and sign it out.
Does
That's the
allow
only.
better tracking.
Everybody else will
It
have to
does,
sign
and it-
out that corporate card, so like if I'm out of town at a conference, which I attend quite a few, then I would sign it out.
Everybody's got one.
But
I
this
mean, I'm
takes
not
away.
arguing with you
No,
now.
this takes
I'm just-
away, this
You
takes
are.
away, like, so right now we have 15 people with cards. So this takes away, like, say, like my card and any
I
other department heads and
I
stuff.
don't see the difference between her using her personal card and getting reimbursed and having a city card. What's the
Yeah.
Well, we're just, because we're talking occasionally, that's the point, occasionally. And we're trying to get some real control over the money.
Right.
And the number went from, I mean, we talked about 3, we talked
Mhm.
about 5, and now we're back up to 6. And
We're
I'm
at
just
6.
saying that if you're gonna get control of the money, you gotta take control of the money.
Well, if you want to take one of the corporate cards away, then by all means. But then if two people, so if Rich is gone and I are gone at the same time, then just one of us has to be reimbursed. I mean, it's either way. It's, it's a big cut from 15 to 6 to me.
I'm just
It's-
making
it's
it
huge.
public.
It's a huge cut. So it's up to you. I mean, ultimately, it's your guys' decision on how you want to do it. If you don't even want to do it at all and keep it the way it is.
No, I think it got out of control. I think 15 is way too much. I mean, I've been in the corporate world for 20 years and I've never seen 15. It was always top leadership and the additional cards as needed. And I think that that's necessary. I think the people that you've chosen, it's proper and in the way that it needs to be done. I think that in the debit card, that's ridiculous. I think it's got to be credit cards and it's got to be secure.
They are all credit cards right now. So
Okay.
they're like purchasing cards. So it's not like any of us have debit cards. And then this is the same thing. It is all a credit. I mean, they're exactly the same cards. I mean, they're just lower limit amounts. And like you said, with the 4 people that probably use it the most,
Mhm.
with just being like Deb with her, she does all the ordering for stamps and general supplies in City Hall. So, yeah.
It makes us efficient.
Yes,
That's
and
the
it makes
bottom
it
line.
easier for the finance department to keep track of who's who and allocating wise.
Yep.
I would move to approve the Buchanan credit card policy draft as amended by you.
I'll support.
May I have a roll call, please?
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yes.
Money,
Yes.
Swett.
Yes.
Carries.
Okay, thank you. Now, moving down to the added item D, the lift station. Somebody want to start the conversation?
So is Tom Gordon?
Yeah, Tom's here, so.
So I didn't know if, Tom, if you wanted to provide a report on behalf of the Joint Water Sewer Board as chair, or if you wanted me to sort of summarize the meeting this morning, did you have a preference? Sure. So we do have Anton Lockett here. He is the property owner, as many of you may be aware, of the former Wheatberry property. And there was discussion in regards to that property's potential use of the lift station that's located near the St. Joseph River on city-owned property. There was question as to, we want to try to very fundamentally determine with clarity ownership of the lift station, and also whether and under what circumstance the lift station is turned back on, as it's been non-operational for a couple of years. It sounds like the Wheatberry property ceased operation during the pandemic, which was quite common for most restaurants, and that since that time that lift station's been non-operational. So the meeting this morning was to discuss what the path forward would look like to allow that station to potentially come back on board to this joint water sewer system for the city of Buchanan / Buchanan Township. The conversation steered towards a recommendation that we reach out to a gentleman named John Holland, who is currently serving contractually through Michigan Rural Water as the operator in charge for the City of Buchanan Wastewater Department, and to get his feedback on the question at hand. I did converse with Mr. Holland earlier today via telephone. His response to me was that he felt that, number one, he recommends that we refer the issue of ownership to the city attorney to have them make an analysis based on the existing documentation and whether any additional agreements need to be drafted to clarify that issue, and that secondary to that, as operator in charge, he was not comfortable with a recommendation to bring the lift station on board to the system with anything less than a report from a certified engineer, was his statement to me. He indicated that he would follow that up in writing. I have not yet received the writing, but as soon as I get that from him, I'll forward that on to the board and city commission members.
Tom, can you give us a brief history of that lift station? Are you able to do that? I mean,
I was not, we weren't, the sewer board wasn't involved in putting all of that together. The restaurant is in the township. They had some issues, and it's pretty much handled by the city. Originally, had septic systems with drain fields out there. There was major failures of those systems, and the property owner at the time put together a proposal that was not sufficient, that didn't address what needed to be addressed. They looked at putting the force main along Red Bud Trail rather than downhill. And again, that's we worked with the sewer board. I wasn't involved in any of that, so I really didn't get involved in this until just recently here when one of these things came up. The sewer board did get a proposal from Tiffany, the engineer who's doing the work for the building owner, but it was not sufficient. Again, the problem was getting the wastewater to the city. And again, I'm looking at this in retrospect now from what I've learned recently. Yeah, we were involved in putting this thing together. I reviewed what was put together, and I've done a pretty decent job of getting it all back functional and running it operational again. Looks like we just have these legal issues right now to resolve, and he's got a couple of audit ends and still got to fix up there.
I think we should talk to Anton.
As I say.
Sure.
let
Good evening, Anton Lockett. You got a brief history from Tom. So we met in November about this lift station situation, and so far I've been doing everything that Joint Water Sewer Board asked me to complete for this lift station. It's been totally rebuilt. When we opened the lift station, after it wasn't working condition when we first opened it, and the plumbers wanted to try to turn it on and see how it functioned. After doing that, they noticed there was a check valve that had an issue. They wanted to massage that check valve for a minute and see how it worked. Over a couple days, we went back down to it after a 4-day span, I believe it was, and the lift station had pretty much failed. All the piping was in the bottom of the lift station, so it turned into a complete rebuild. They completely rebuilt the lift station piping throughout. They used the same
when you
pumps.
say they, who's it?
Bronchi Plumbing
Oh.
did the plumbing. Heine Electric did all the electrical, and Monsanto Wastewater is who did all the pumping. they totally rebuilt the lift station. They used the same pumps because they realized that there wasn't an issue with the pumps. It was just some issues with some check valves and some piping. So they rebuilt those. We have both pumps in. Both pumps are working. We've tested both pumps. I've tested them with Tom on the 30th when there was a single pump, and then again on the 4th, I believe. He came down when there was the second pump was put in. We checked that. We checked the alarm system. It rings in the building when the alarm goes off. It rings to my phone when the alarm goes off, and it also it beeps down at the lift station. Although the buzzer's a little low, but Hein Electric is working on replacing that now. The lift station's functional, and I've talked to a couple different engineers about that last contingency that the board wants. The first one was Jacob Owowski. He works for A&R Wastewater, and he was on the staff that handled the overflow situation that happened back in 18, was it? I think 17, 18, or whatever it was, when they had the issue with the overflow there. When we talked on the phone, he stated, pretty strongly that he doesn't see the issue being the lift station. The issue was the owners not being available and not being around for the alarm, not maintaining the lift station properly. So, I just, to be honest opinion, I feel like the issue here is not the lift station, but projected fear of, someone not being capable and incompetent of maintenance. I don't see the issue being the lift station at all, but their, fear that somebody else is going to come in and not maintenance it correctly or be incompetent in its use is what we're dealing with here. I'm not Wheatberry. I am very hands-on in my business. There's no other cooks. I'm the cook. There's no other managers. I manage it. I'm at my building every day. I've been at the lift station every day since I found out what it does and what it is. So I understand the hesitancy of the situation, but I'm not the prior owners, and that's where that's what I feel like I'm dealing with.
What would it take to get the gentleman you were talking about to saying it wasn't an issue, what would it take to get a letter from them? 'Cause that would-
He told me, if I needed him, that he would be willing to, write his statements down, to Jacob Owowski from A&R Wastewater, Bronchi Plumbing, Hein Electric, all, said that they're willing to meet with whoever to show them the functionality of the lift station, the things that are working, to calm down the fears of what, continuance of what happened with Wheatberry.
This whole issue is the fact that it's there. It's the whole issue. It's there. But now, we got a person in business, and do we say it's there, and as much as we're doing too much, because it's his lift station. That's the problem. It's his lift station. And it's his problem. The more we do, the more we make it our problem. So if he gets that letter, and you're the one, I could make a motion to bypass everything, but I don't really want to do that because I feel.
Can I ask you a question? Can you tell me, what's the contingency again? The last thing that the joint board is waiting for?
The Joint Water Sewer Board wanted, my understanding was the consensus was to move forward based upon the recommendation issued by John Holland of Michigan Rural Water, and his recommendation that he conveyed to me was that he felt that we should not move forward until A, ownership is definitively determined, and he recommended utilizing the city attorney to make that analysis, and B, that there is some sort of written report provided by a third-party engineer to insulate the city from liability associated with any potential operation of the lift station.
And again, when I talked to Jacob Owalski, his statement in regards to that was that no other engineer is going to come out and, you know, just give an eye look to a lift station and put a stamp on it, you know, saying it's functional and ready to go. What he stated was it would technically be reverse engineered. He would dig in, you know, certain places on the way from the building down to the lift station, and then from the lift station to where it goes for you all. And then he would get down into the lift station and check a couple things from there, which would cost, estimate, you know, tens of thousands of dollars is what he stated. So I don't really think that we need an engineer to say that it's functioning properly. It's the 5th time this thing's been rebuilt. You know, according to A&R Wastewater, they've done it 4 times. I have different hands on it. The companies that I use know, they know the history that I've been given. They know that Monsanto Wastewater is also going to be on call for any of the alarm systems. They're going to be the ones that's maintenance in it. The city stated earlier that they don't have enough manpower. I was actually never going to ask the city to, you know, handle any of that. Monsanto Wastewater, Hein Electric, and Brunke Plumbing are all going to be on the call alarm because they'll be the ones handling the lift station.
During these joint meetings, did you discuss how did it get there? How did the lift station get installed? Did you talk about that at the meeting? I mean,
Yeah, it was cigars and scotch.
Mike, can you give any input on how it ended up being there? How historically?
It was cigars and scotch, literally.
It's my understanding it was approved by the prior administration, who's no longer here, under Manager Marks, who's no longer present. We do not have detailed records of how it came into being. There is a construction easement we found a record of, but the construction easement, upon first blush, does not appear to give clarity as to, after it's constructed, what happens thereafter. And we found no other additional documentation to provide that clarity.
Are there any other privately owned lift stations? There weren't any.
What's it gonna take to find out who actually owns that lift station? I mean,
That I still have to talk to the city attorneys about that and get their opinion on what it would take to make that determination.
It's gotta be easier fixed than a lawyer. I mean, is there, you know,
Well, I think part of the problem, though, is that Rich is waist deep into getting grants that are based on water quality and making use of the river, and I don't know that we want to, go ahead.
The reason why this is such a big hang-up on our operators and even my operator that runs my plant every single day is if something fails there and it goes into the river, he's going to prison for that problem. He's the licensed operator in charge. This is why the guy from Michigan Rural Water that we've contracted with, that is our OIC, said it has to be engineered so that it takes the liability away from the city that says it's not ours, but it's on our property. So they can say it's right-sized, and then you can fall back on them, and it doesn't put my operator, Andy Warner, in prison.
How do we end up in a lift station on our property that's not ours?
well, I don't even know if that statement's true, though.
That is true. If
I mean,
it,
how
if
can
it
you say-
fails and it goes through the DEQ and
It
the
has
DNR,
failed.
goes into the river.
And the
it
state has
falls
showed
back
up.
on the city, it's already done it once or twice. We've had many.
But there was no
issues.
questions from the
There-
state.
There was. We have been through this. I've been down there personally cleaning it up and putting lime on the parking lot and cleaning the catch basins and putting the nets in the river to catch all the stuff that shouldn't be in the river. That's our responsibility because we have the operators in charge. That is our property. It hits our property and runs into the river from our property.
Also still a hypothetical. Let's make an assumption that it's gonna happen. And like I said, I understand his fears from what previously happened, but I don't live in Chicago. I'm not unreachable.
And I will also tell you that Anton has been there the entire time, 100%. I am not taking that away from him at all.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Not one
I
bit.
believe everything you're saying.
Not one bit.
But I am also worried about leaving
Right.
the city out to dry.
The documentation of prior discharges without a subsequent opinion from a engineer indicating that we've solved the problem, I believe sets us up for liability in a very risky manner without that insulation, in my opinion.
How long would it?
This is a gentleman right here that deals with contaminated surfaces all the time.
He doesn't want any part of this, I
Oh,
can tell
no,
by
I
the
apologize.
Yeah, no. We don't want.
He's like,
the-
don't throw me into this.
But this
We're,
is a,
I believe we're
He can't
involving
discuss
ourselves
that.
way
It's
more
meeting
than we
anyways.
should on this. That's why, you know, when I asked this morning if it was gonna come here, I was told it wasn't going to. I asked if this was gonna go through, I was told it was going to. You know, it was an emergency meeting to begin with, you know, at the midnight hour. It was allowed to happen at 7 o'clock this morning. Now, I did do some calling, I did do some checking. A 24/7 alarm routed to somebody other than him, plus him. And the city, I mean, it could be routed to a, I'm trying to find the best of both evils. And I'm trying to avoid the lawyer because, well, I'm not even gonna go into that discussion. But we had an emergency meeting this morning and it didn't go anywhere near, I was mad about even having it, that it was even allowed. Because we did tell him to get an engineer. We did ask him to get an engineer's inquiry. That was not done. But on the other hand, I don't want to turn this fiasco, because that's what it's turning into. The lift station is there. It's there. He's gonna maintain, and we don't know if he's gonna maintain his grease trap. We don't know if he's, even if we get the letter, if we get 1,000 letters from a lawyer, we don't know he's gonna do what we ask him to do, because we have no control over it. He owns the lift station. So, I mean, it's a catch-22 argument, but he bought the building, he owns the building. How long are we gonna shut him down before we allow him to open it up? That's my only real question. How long are we gonna be obstructionists, you know, based on a fear that may never happen or might, just because it did? And
But I don't feel like it's us that's stopping him. It's a joint board that's asking for these things, right?
well, the Water and Sewer Commission asked for an engineer release. They did. And they didn't have any paperwork when they had an emergency meeting. And Heather, you know, and I just don't feel, being at that meeting, it went sideways. And you can't blame Andy, but Andy's not gonna go to jail if a turd gets in the river. It's not gonna happen. If it's in a massive overflow, it might happen. You know,
I mean, like, Andy, is that the
wastewater operator.
that was sitting here this morning, the skinnier one? I mean, one of the statements Andy made prior to the meeting being adjourned today was lift stations break down all the time. So I don't see what the difference is in my lift station breaking down. I know it's located by the river, but the only difference in my lift station breaking down and other lift stations breaking down is location. The maintenance, we have yet to see, because I haven't had the ability to maintenance it,
But
other than what I did to fix it, you know, to see how I'll handle that situation. I feel like I'm being, you know, paying for somebody else's sins out of my pocket.
When did you find out about the lift station?
After I bought I knew about it having a lift station, but I didn't know anything about the condition or what I would have to do to get it up and running until after I bought the building. And now it's up to a point where it's up and running, and like I stated, no engineer is going to stamp that just off eye test alone.
all the people that you've had work on it, plus the gentleman that you said come out, can we get an email from them people sent to Heather And, you know, I mean, I don't wanna have an emergency meeting, so I mean, this is gonna put you 2 weeks out, you know, because 2 weeks from now is when the next city hall meeting is. That'll give everybody 2 weeks to collectively get it together, so that we can give you a decision in 2 weeks.
Well, what was the point of bringing it to us tonight? What were
I
we to
didn't,
figure out?
so it was requested by Commissioner Viancy to be brought to the commission tonight. I don't personally think that it should come before the board unless the board wants to override my recommendation, is how I explained it to Commissioner Viancy. So only if the board, the city commission wants to override my recommendation. My recommendation is to follow the recommendation of our operator in charge, John Holland, who indicates that he is not comfortable with it being brought on board for a multitude of reasons, unless there's a report from an engineer. And when I mentioned to him that there was concern raised that it would be difficult to get that report, he indicated in his experience that would not be difficult to get. He felt that that could be attainable.
I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, but I don't know enough about the situation. I don't know enough about lift stations. And so I kind of feel in the dark to make any decision at all. I don't even know, you know, there's so much I don't know.
That, I would agree with that. In my opinion, I think it's best left to the discretion of the operator in charge, who is qualified to make that determination. And his advice is to get that third-party engineer report, so I defer to his recommendation.
And that was the advice of the board
Of
also?
The board said defer to his advice for the best path forward.
So we're still putting him off as far as opening his business, though.
That's accurate, but again, this is the same information that was provided in November to him, that before it would be turned on, an engineer's report was needed. Nothing's changed.
How long was Wheatberry on that same lift station?
I don't
I mean,
know.
how long were they functional?
2014 is when they came out with a
Say
report.
probably 5-6 years, I think.
It was 8 years with the lift station.
It seems like, well, I talked to Kevin at one point about it, and he was saying that he just got it pumped regularly. Is that an option?
No,
no?
what Kevin told me was that his exact words were the lift station failed because of the users. And that if they'd been around or if they were reachable, that the overflow would have never happened. He also stated that turning off the well every time that I leave the building, which stops all like water flow, would, you know, also stop any kind of situations from.
I guess my point is that if there's a fear, where was the fear from 2014 with inadequate operators of this said building prior to this gentleman coming on? I'm just asking.
Bill Housen did not want this put on our property at all. He
Okay, well,
was not a fan of this.
that's irrelevant. I don't care about
No,
that.
but
What
Bill
I-
Housen was your operator in charge at that point.
But, okay, that's still irrelevant to my point, Mike. Where was this said fear that we now somehow have manifested that didn't exist?
No, the fear was there. No, the fear was there. The
So-
fear was there.
Okay.
Bill Marks overrode that. Bill Marks
Okay,
overrode that.
just
Nobody
trying
wants to
to-
say it out loud, but Bill Marks and Kevin Barker went in that back room and worked out a deal. It's that simple. It's that simple. You know, and we can't beat around the bush. Kevin Barker worked out a deal with Bill Marks, and Anton's holding the bag. And that's what aggravates me so much about it, Heather. You know, somebody actually come to Buchanan and we're gonna stiff them.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't have, it's not that I don't have sympathy for the situation, I 100% do, but in my opinion, two wrongs don't make a right. If it was done inappropriately the first time, I don't think doing it inappropriately a second time makes it better.
Let's let her finish what she's speaking of.
So I think the right course of action was the first time it should have only been brought aboard with the satisfaction of the operator in charge, and it was not, it was overridden. And in this case, the operator in charge is saying it still shouldn't be brought on board, he's not currently satisfied, so you're again going to override the operator in charge if it's brought on board at this time, absent a report of a written report of a certified engineer.
Yeah, but
That's where we're currently at.
That being said, if his dissatisfaction was noted at the time of the creation of the situation, and if his continued dissatisfaction with it, and it brings into question his dissatisfaction if there was never an issue that's sent, to Mike's point, to prison for said issue.
But there were multiple discharges that were inappropriate, some of which could be due to design. We don't know that. It's a question. So it raises, from my perspective, it creates an even greater potential for liability for the city that we're on notice that there's a potential problem with it. In fact, the inspection that was done by Tom Gordon still noted some things that still are not up to specification, just based on that cursory inspection that wasn't done by a certified engineer.
Interesting.
I mean, I tend to, I mean, I agree with the argument she just made. You know, you said that Bill and Kevin did something in a backroom deal. That's how it got done the first time, even though our water manager opposed it. But now we want to do the same thing again. Doesn't really make sense.
Well, Mr. Gordon was all for turning it on this morning. He's the one that called for the meeting, and he changed his mind for some reason. So, I mean, we got somebody right here that was all for turning it on and changed his mind. And I mean, I didn't want the meeting at all. And because Anton hadn't followed the directions of the meeting, and I called Heather and told her not to help at all, because this is on him. And as bad as it is, it's on him. But then we got involved when we said our operator wasn't gonna be responsible, and we're not gonna turn it on the say-so of our operator. And I don't know for sure who the engineer is, you know. I don't know if you can get an engineer to authorize it. Obviously, the operator's not going to for the city of Buchanan, but he's not even on board yet, you know. I mean, I can't say what I really want to, Sean. But I don't think, Anton doesn't wanna go to jail, cause he actually owns the thing. So I don't see him wanting to let anything float down the river, you know?
I mean, I get that, and I want him to open really badly. I also don't want to put the city at risk.
Well, every time we get out of bed, we're putting the city at risk. I mean, Anton, you don't have any idea how much this is eating me up. I wanna make a motion so that we can move forward. And I wanna go back to the 2-week timeline. And, you know, are we gonna indefinitely tell him no? Because we can't override you, but I don't want that relationship with you either. I want you to get an engineer to say he's gonna put his stamp on it. And I mean,
I've talked to four thus far from 4 different companies, and I'll say exactly what I said this morning. If it comes down to them having to reverse engineer it, it's not gonna happen. I'm not paying for that. That's not something that's coming out of my pocket. If a backroom deal happened here, and that is, it's not my issue. I will not pay for reverse engineering to be done I just paid over $10,000 to get that thing up and going. I'm not paying another, $10,000, $15,000 for somebody to come look at something that was rebuilt by an engineer when it was built. If you wanted a stamp, you should have got it when he built it.
I'm sorry, I just have to say amen on that.
This is- so.
you got any comments, Mr. Gordon? You're sitting over there awful quiet.
A lot of improvements were made to that station over what was originally proposed. The alarm systems in it, they're functioning. They had a couple of tweaks and got another time. The real problem there is maintenance of and control of this grease operation. The failures from the past, I guess, were primarily because they ignored the grease issue. As pump stations go, it's got the same simple controls as what the city has on their pump stations. Their pump stations are made out of concrete, this is made out of fiberglass because it's a small private pump station. Like I say, it was installed, it was approved, it's operational. That's not saying that what was done was correct. I wouldn't know to put a pump station down there, but the fact is that it's already there.
It's there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's irrelevant, really, when it gets right down to it. I'm gonna make a motion. And I hate doing this, but I'm gonna make a motion that we allow this man to open that restaurant up and, open that lift station up. I'm gonna override everything, cause my gut's telling me, you know, and I might be wrong, and I don't wanna do Kevin Barker, I want it very noted that I'm not doing this to do Kevin Barker any favors. But I wanna make the motion that we open that lift station up, and we get a 90-day report from you every 90 days, you know, to this commission. And it's so difficult because we got lawyers coming out of our ears in here. So they got all kinds of, and they got 3 different opinions on this. But my opinion on this is, I want to give you a shot, but you're going to have to work with the city, but you can't work with the city. That's the catch-22. You're going to have to become the operator's best friend without being his best friend. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because, you know, I'm trying to CYA, so I guess I'll make the motion to open the lift station. But I want to report every 90 days.
For how long?
The next
Specify.
12 months, for sure.
For a
And then we can
90-day
extend it.
report? Okay. So what are you contingently, if we do not receive the 90-day, then it comes back in front of the city commission?
Right.
Okay.
Do you want, and you want to revisit that at the end of the 12 months and we?
Right.
Okay.
That's the best I can do. I don't even know if I'm going to get a second or a vote.
Do we have a motion? Is there support?
Dan, I'm going to support it.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have roll call?
Actually, if I could just real briefly add some discussion.
Sure.
I just want clarified in the minutes, that if voted yes, it would be against the recommendation of the city manager, the primary operator in charge, the secondary operator in charge, and the joint water sewer board.
So noted. I just want to, you know, I've thought this through very, very, very hard. And that's why it's eating my lunch. But
You ready?
Do you have any comments you want to make, Commissioner Money?
No, I can't agree with Dan more, but I don't know, I'm torn between this. I want to see him open up. I know, I think he pretty much put his heart and soul into this whole operation. I want to see it open up. I don't know about the city liability.
I mean,
but it's
my
just-
comments are, I don't know enough to make an educated decision. I'm gonna vote no because I'm gonna go back to the joint sewer board, our operator, our city manager, and I just don't feel comfortable saying yes to something that I don't really know about. And when other people have said, whoa, let's pump the brakes, I don't feel comfortable saying yes. So that's where I'm at, but.
take roll call.
Yeah. Let's have roll call.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yes.
Money,
I really want to see you open up, but I can't in all honesty.
Okay.
So I got to say no.
Dennison,
No.
Swan. Oh, you guys are making it difficult for me. I have no idea. They recall it, we can go again, because I mean, it's 2 and 2.
The no's go to the nose. The no's carry it.
The no's carry it for the charter?
no's carry it. In my previous experience, correct, Robert's rules, 2-2 split, no's carry it.
I don't recall with certainty, but that sounds accurate.
But I had, you know, I was actually involved in a no-no 2-2.
There's nothing in our charter that says anything about carries.
No, I don't think there is.
It just means it can be brought up again. I mean, all you gotta do is try to do what,
Okay,
something with the other.
so motion does not carry, but like he said, you can bring it forth again.
Sounds good. Bring it back
Well,
to the
we
city
got to
commission.
we got to do something so this can get open. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I think we have to work towards giving him the ability to open that restaurant. He's willing to take a chance in this town. That's just the way I feel.
Okay, let's keep things moving here. Where are we? So under new business, item A is resolution 2023.01/02. Consider a resolution to purchase, acquire, and construct capital improvements and to publish notice of intent to issue municipal securities, which Mr. Campbell spoke to us earlier about for the DPW building. I would welcome a motion if someone would like to make one.
I will so move. This is money, I'll support it. Resolution 2023 spot 01-02.
Thank you. Money supports. Can we have a roll call, please?
Comments.
Oh, yeah,
Comment.
sure.
Sorry. Just so everybody's aware, what you're voting for is, it's the first step in a 43% increase to the water rates of our citizens over the next 5 years. You still have the opportunity to reduce the size of the DPW project and the funding allocated out of the water sewer fund, which you were documented with, that is showing a deficit budget. That's all.
We have a motion in a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Money,
Yes.
Swam,
No.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
No.
Bianski.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving down to item B, closed session. Someone like to make a motion?
Sean will make
to enter
said
closed
motion.
session? Can you read it, Mark, just because of the MC?
Okay, no problem. I move to enter closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268, Section 81H, to discuss a legal writing prepared by Attorney James N. Wright regarding restrictive covenants on city-owned property in a matter of which subject to attorney-client privilege.
Thank you. Is there support?
Yeah.
The roll call, please.
Money,
Yes.
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski.
Yeah.
You're enclosed.
Thank you.
Longer 3 minutes ever since.
Welcome back. I thought you moved down here, man. They have been. So you showed up. So hey, let me just say this. Thanks for coming. Don't come back. What's going on? That's great to see you. See you on the street next time. I was, well, I was up to dinner with, Bill, and this guy, one time, I said, yeah, he was short. Yeah? That's right. No, no.
5 minutes, I'll be
No, my day started out with a fantastic meeting.
I'll even give you a ride home. Anyway.
But you should just get credit from,
I looked around, I decided to gymnasium.
Yes. It's gonna cost me $15,000 to do this. Yeah. And so.
What did they have?
Right.
He told me this was gonna be cool.
Is the one that's gonna fall on, that's the problem. That's, you know, and the thing
Yeah,
is,
well, right, yeah.
fine, jail, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Right.
Well, I gotta get my hearing aids.
I mean, this guy might be from the office.
And
I'm surprised you're two guys. Yes, I know what, the one side is the light bill.
But no, we'll have plenty of time. Believe me, we'll have plenty. Good to see you. Yeah.
Yes. It's not, it's not our operation, but it's a terrible, terrible. I feel bad for the guy. Hopefully they'll be out.
We'll wait, yeah.
Hi, Court. I rushed my.
Good, good. I end up staying. Been going good down there? And he says, oh, I think it's around someday. I don't know where he just blew me off. Okay. You know.
The problems aren't
There is.
so much within
isn't it? Hang on.
In my shop, it's, I heard that, so, read better.
Huh?
You know, you get your Facebook here, nice, good.
Oh, yeah, I know Rick.
Easier.
When he comes down, talk to you.
Yes.
I thought about talking to him, but I just looked down the scoreboard, I thought maybe
Take a look and if there's
you
anything.
have a little more cool to read yet.
Oh, no, Reed has me.
But anyway, I just think, I mean,
We just wanna make sure
you got the
everybody's safe,
basketball
everybody's
championship
secure down there.
with the
Yeah,
girls
secure.
and the boys, baseball, you got tennis. And I thought, well, you know, after 57 years, I think it's time to recognize the only state championship in football.
It's just like, yeah, so, sorry.
But I'll stop down there, we'll just
Huh?
check.
You can start with.
Okay,
Father,
but I-
let them know. Yeah, I saw that,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I didn't know where he lives, he lives across the street.
Yeah.
He lives across the street from my brother, who went to, my brother passed away. His brother was like, oh, really? Yeah.
I'll give you a call.
Grandson played for it.
I'll just show up on it.
Just bring it right to the car.
Well,
yeah. Well, you wouldn't.
Take it off.
I mean,
No, I got it.
57 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
But these people don't even play.
Yeah, one time, a little longer than
They know that.
Yeah.
You know,
That's-
but being that part of our school history, the only, nice was the only state championship because we didn't have a playoff back then.
He's surprisingly fairly well behaved tonight.
You know, basketball, you know, volleyball, you know.
Yeah.
But the fourth writers and coaches all voted, what team was it, A, B, C, D, you know, and Joe Doyle said that if we beat the Lord there, last game of Iowa, he's gonna give us, and that's what he did, he beat us 13-7.
Wow.
It's a good game, you know, man. Yeah. Well, I had to, I was fullback and defensive back 2 years ago, yeah, my junior and senior year, and I graduated, so I'm a little prejudiced for this happening. I thought about it, and I said, well, nobody wants to do anything about it, and I just thought that banner ought to be up there with all the names and the coaches and the manager, and, honor them. I mean, honor everybody else.
I agree with that. I think I can't speak for, but I think you need to.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
I talked to Reed. I see what he said. I know I talked to Larry Money about it. And he, I said, well, maybe we ought to do something about it. You know, I thought, nobody wants to do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You can even tell, hey, so you talked to me, I said, and I said, hey, why don't you talk to Reed? So, yeah.
Well, it's nice talking to him, though. I mean, this is school, and he's a basketball. Well, maybe I just go over one of these, have the practice going, and I say, hey, come to your home and Friday next week, let's get them out there and practice. Thank you.
Well, they have the paperwork that was messed up, but. How you doing, Harvey?
Hey, how much
All right,
does
how's
a
it going?
Parker patrol vehicle cost?
That's, 45. Yeah, but then you have to, and shoes, say about, so
send those kids off across the country over and over and over again. Different group, they would come back, a new group would go, and, they were going in their personal vehicles, and he says, I don't know these cars, I don't know how even, how old they are, what condition they are, nothing about those cars. I don't know those kids are safe, you find me. Then I go, your story was reminding me of that. I said to myself, and he stopped up, and he's never yells. He never yells. He's a talker, he never yells. So I decided that I would take the rest of the morning and do my other stuff, and then after lunch I would take the other stuff. And my first call was to garage services, because they have vehicles, and I said, I need a truck. And they said, you know, and I said, what do you need? I said, oh, I'm looking to talk, do you have a truck? Good people over here, what do I do? Give me a truck. And she said,
We do enough.
so,
It's like, what, I asked them, what, can we just?
we chat for a while.
Yes, usually they do, and it's like,
Just give me a minute, let's go down those ways.
that's why I put you at the
I
top.
said, okay.
Have you ever looked at that Blackbird?
So, went downstairs with a professor who was working for, was holding box sellers.
It's the recipe.
And,
You're gonna cook it.
he had a kid in there.
Maybe I will one of these days, yeah. I'd like
Wait
to.
for it to
I was wondering, have you ever eaten it?
He's still fired up. He said, what? He said, you have a truck for me? And I stood there and I said, well, I've got 4 extra
Those yams?
with extra fuel tanks and lawnmowers.
Extra.
2 inside the bag axle, and one that can install and he says, oh my God. And he jumps up, he says, oh my God. And he says,
So
oh my
again,
God.
the ice cream
It's been treated as like, oh my God.
It's,
You got it. Where did you find that?
It's really
I
long.
said,
I'll write, I'll get it for you and I'll bring it to you.
and he's just, they told me that. Yeah, they started with that with me.
Proprietary.
And
There,
Has a little,
there ice cream.
oh my God. He
I've
said,
had it.
so we got it,
I dish it up.
we took a couple of
I
kids.
think, was that what I did?
Couple of
Yeah,
kids,
yeah,
I'll be
This
honest.
weekend I'm going to the
And
Holidays
we took them over there and,
Festival.
oh my God. I wanted
Yes,
more.
it's a special.
Basically on that truck. Staff services and excellence going on with that. Yeah. Yeah, that's after that. They gross it up, so you, your price is actually $1,500. I know. No, you're awesome, man. It was just so funny. It was just a coincidence. I really didn't do anything other than shoot breeze with that lady over there until she remembered that she did too. Oh, yeah, because athletics bought the truck for the women's rowing team.
Yeah, yeah, Mom.
And then they just haven't, it's been sitting for.
Makes you wonder, don't it? It does.
So, yeah, so you're.
What up, Norman?
Well, what's going on?
Just another day, you know?
Yeah, well, you know,
Another day.
say no, and then so.
I went, oh my God. Then
They
there.
brought back good reason.
Yes.
Mike, are you guys picking up Christmas trees?
Yes.
Where are you gonna drop them?
What's that?
Where's it drop them off?
We grind them
Oh,
in our stump grinder, tree grinder.
you can bring them out to River St. Joe.
I saw you guys post that.
That got the most interactions of one of our social media.
Over here.
8,000 interactions.
Really?
Just off that post. I mean, the matrix is skewed, I think, a little bit when it goes to that, because it doesn't double, it doesn't count for doubles, but. Yeah, we had, it was like 700 shares, and then it had views, and the pile's huge, it's great. I'm still not sure why we did it.
You know, the day that I saw your post, I went to Menards to get some materials. I was on vacation and doing home projects. Menards had about 30 trees for free on their store, and I thought, man, if I had a dump truck, I'd come get these trees for Tony, but.
Yeah, that was the subject of one of the meetings, our meetings, too. He said, well, we could just call Menards and tell them to come drop them off.
we don't, and that's, should be, you should have to do a separate, I wouldn't have agreed with any of that, not without seeing it, because grease traps, this guy's in here and said, there's no grease issue. Well, what's fixing that? Because grease is the problem, because he has 1,000 back cans of grease in his car to go into a system. If he doesn't, then I'm pretty sure that shouldn't do anything. If he has a proper system and somebody came in and showed us, from the grease company and said, yeah, this is great. I would have, because like I said, I wanted to screen out and go, this is a grease problem fixed. You know, like.
There's still bigger than it was too much.
Yeah, it's a minor issue, because it goes, and yes, the EPA will fail the code. You know, yes, they will.
It's a
He is
forward
not.
fishery.
Like, I used to work for HUD, they, EPA will throw
Yes.
one to the bus, right off the bat.
She called me, so I told her about this, like, what's going on? Yes. The kids down by the, and she says, this girl, this is cool. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, you kidding me? It's like, okay. Yeah. And then, well, do this, I said, do this. I hate the word tender, but I know you prosecuted 6 years old. She said he was. That's a good chance. You said that, and I'm like, dang, what?
Why did you, like, you're a skinny little thing, what are you advertising for? Oh.
That's my favorite vacation.
I know. I'm like, I'm starting with a big. Go in, have a good first day.
Yeah, you're working with a little dog. She said he came over and tried to get her taser.
That doesn't apply.
She didn't say, she said it was soft.
This happened with Bill. I'm sure that's sure.
Yeah, Bill's like, he can't talk
Yeah,
about
I think, yeah, but pretty sure what it was.
Like, they, the one time, no, it happens with last year,
Well, I'm glad you caught it. Because I was going over some things.
no, and then they get out.
Especially when you get, like you said, like 6 years.
Well, it never came to a vote. It literally ran up against that, and they said, yeah, we'll do it as long as you do it. So it never came to a vote. And my wastewater operator was 100% against exactly what he said. He did not want to have it. Should have never been put on our property, and it would never be an issue. So, basically, this is where the city stands. This is what we will this morning, is that we can't take your money that you pay to the city and maintain a lift station for a business that doesn't even pay taxes in this county. So, you're taking my business to maintain something that doesn't even belong to you or anyone else that pays taxes in this county. You see where we're getting at? So, the liability to the city is exactly what we're trying to do. So that in the long run, you and everybody else that lives here doesn't have to pay for a problem that occurs because it didn't work.
I know. Yeah, and she said,
So, it's not that I don't want the guy to open up. Or I was reading the house. I love it.
something like that for the first day.
And I love barbecue food. Love it. So, I wastewater operator to put his name on that system to say, yes, we can go ahead and operate this, or it can operate in our city, that I'm responsible for, that I'm gonna go to prison. Yep. Yep. Gary Greathouse would not approve this.
They didn't take it anyway, so.
Guaranteed. I worked with Gary for quite a few years, probably 10 or 12 years actually. I worked with Gary. I like Gary a lot. Yes. Yeah. So we're trying to bring this back. So when I started here, there was separation. There was a cemetery, there was street work, there was wastewater, and there was water. Okay? So we're trying to bring the teams, so everyone gets paid the same money to start with. The only thing that separates us now is licenses for wastewater and water. Trying to bring everyone together and we all work for, and then there's guys that go there and there's guys that go here, but we all meet every day and say, this is what we have.
I know, we got, everybody else is good.
That's a team building.
Yeah, we gotta get her food, bro. He's gonna quit. Where is he? I'm done.
But I mean, the dude can't let it go from him. Obviously, and now I'm a liar and a disgrace. I don't know if you got that. I have a 6-year-old. That's what he then emailed me, is that I'm a liar and a disgrace to the city.
Yeah. We started our school resource officer today.
I saw that. That's super exciting.
Machine
I mean, I really
in the pot.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Really, really
so
do.
that,
good.
the actual apparatus on the front of the machine is smaller in
If it
width
wasn't for one
than
of
the
my,
actual
I remember
machine
noticing what was
behind
going
me.
on and looking for the markers. It
Yes.
actually pulled me out of a really bad situation, with my
Will not.
second wife. So it's like, it was pretty big for me to hear that that's actually.
You don't have to apologize,
And it
man.
takes a trained person to do that, to see that there were bruise marks that were coming past the path line, and just seeing that my
But that's,
general.
I knew that was gonna go that way.
well-being was wrong, and she
So
ran the
I
meeting
knew
in the
before you
office. I
even
was
did
like,
that,
"There was
that it
something
would end
going
that
on."
exactly.
That's why I spoke up, and then the next, about 2
Yeah.
years later, my stepmom was in jail, and my dad was somewhere else briefly approved, so.
Brandon, we
It's
went
super
in.
important.
Right.
And if
We
they were gonna
went
do
to
it for
lunch
you, I
one
was
day,
gonna, I
and
had.
I told my guys, I
was
said,
gonna call
listen,
and tell them all about
we,
it.
we have to
I
go
think
down.
you asked me.
We
to-
have
I did
to
too, I'm
try
like, you need me to say
see
something, I'm
he's
gonna.
a-
Yeah,
So just hang on.
I got some
He
stories,
pays
and like.
taxes to
You
this
know, that's
town. Let's go.
That's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
That
He
our
was
school
an
resource
asshole.
officer,
That's why we were
as,
He
time
was
goes on,
rude
she
to
gets trained and all
everybody.
that.
The whole
That's
time
what she's
we were
gonna look
there.
for, that's what the
The
success
meal
stories
was
that we're
good.
gonna have here
Food
in
was
our
great.
community also.
It was way
That we can
overpriced.
step into some of these situations and, help the
Yeah,
kids
well,
out.
I guarantee if I went in and talked to you, I promise you.
And a deterrent to some point, people.
Right, exactly. But, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, she started today, she had to deal with a little 6-year-old.
Oh, is she,
All right.
does she go to Ottawa?
She goes to Ottawa,
Oh,
so
okay.
she makes her way around
Good.
and she's
My
Ottawa.
daughter's in Ottawa, so I was wondering if she.
Yeah.
I was wondering why they let the kids out late today, so I figured they were about 5 minutes late to getting let out.
Yeah, no, I think this was earlier, so that wasn't it.
Yeah, they were all being a pain today.
It
It's the
could have
first day
been
back.
first day
It was-
back.
They were, all the teachers were
Yep.
sweating them,
Yeah.
like, just get them out of here.
I'm proud of San Diego, I came back from bridges.
It's worse than it was before.
But still.
It'll take a little bit before they get settled down.
Oh, we were ready for her to go back to school, so.
I know everybody was ready for them to go
Yeah,
back.
like I love her, she's great, she's our only child, we love every minute of her, but she was just a pain. And, she's like, I just wanna go see my friends, and we're going, okay, you get there, yeah. But I don't get to see them on break, yeah, we're busy, yeah.
It's done. Yeah, we'll get to pick it up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he said he had to send home while he went to school with you tomorrow.
Okay, so Cal had offered to take me home, but she was leaving earlier because she had to come to the meeting, and I had so much to do today because I was really far behind, so I was like, I'll just stay, and now I regret my decision.
No one's told you about these meetings before?
I've been to one.
In everyone's defense, and Rick included, the meetings have been fast.
Yeah,
They have.
We have been in and out. So I've narrowed it down to the common denominator here. And there's two of them in this room. And I'm not gonna name names or point fingers, but one is sitting right over there on the other side of Tony. And the other one may be sitting right
Well,
here.
and Norma too, she hasn't been in one for quite some time.
Yeah, Norma, you weren't at the last couple, were you?
Yeah.
A long time, and I'm like,
They're short, they're short, they're short.
It's your fault, Rick, come on. How could it be his fault, he didn't even talk?
It's his presence. It's his presence, yeah.
Did you want me to talk more?
No.
Norma, I think maybe we should leave.
Normally, I'll try to get out of here before midnight, so.
Oh, so you want me to be quiet?
Just
Yeah,
tell-
I'd like to
just
go
tell
home.
Mike all your complaints over there.
She has been.
I have been.
I'd like to go home and watch this football game.
Yeah, we all of us do. It was 24/7.
Is it?
Georgia.
I couldn't care less.
The national championship game.
No, I still wait.
It's the last college football game of the season, man. Huh?
Knock on the door and tell them that it's football. Yeah.
So are we getting any signage downtown for this crossing ordinance that we got with, the crosswalks and people just blowing through and how they have to stop for, it's been pretty bad.
Yes, so obviously, because of the winter time, we had to pull the
Yeah,
signs,
yeah.
so that they kind of think it's like free.
Free for all and totally.
Right, so we wanna purchase some more, but also, once we do the new streetscape, we're looking at making something more permanent down there, instead of having something.
38 to
stuck in
7.
The roadway that,
Who are they playing?
we have had discussions where maybe a pedestrian can push a button and it kind of flashes, I don't know if you've been in another.
Yeah, I'm part of the design committee for
Sure,
the.
so,
the program, so.
those are some ideas that I threw out, that we could have something that is permanent, that
Yeah.
can, flash, so people kind of know. And we can use it
TCU is at
around
halftime,
all
38
year
to
round.
7.
You know, 365, because this time of year, we have to pull them because of snow plowing.
Yeah.
And like I said, they just kind of.
So that's 24, 25 though, they pushed that one already, so that's before they're even thinking about that, we still have a year and some change.
Sure.
Is there a possibility to get something more permanent, like on this, just on the side, so you can point at it and go, hey, you're supposed to stop for us, you know?
Sure, well, that's with the vehicles, with it having it in the road, we're gonna purchase more of those, because we
Yeah.
kind of lost them through the years.
Yeah.
But, that's not.
First day of a school resource officer, huh?
Because it's the motor, we wanna have something like right in the road saying, hey,
Yeah.
our old law.
until I left.
And you have an officer that's down there and
He's hard.
and then start enforcing it, so, people have to start stopping.
I live there, so I see it, yeah, like, that's my style, that's where I'm at all the time, and the U-turns they do in front of my house.
I know. And so we went back and we had U-turn signs like this, and then we bought U-turn signs like this.
Yeah, it's all about enforcement now, it's
Yeah.
all about just writing tickets, you know, and.
So, and, manpower, we do have an officer that's down there, at least a couple times a week. He comes in, that's his only job, is enforcement.
Take your beer with you when they're out of you.
I have protein nuts in the fridge.
Oh, did you?
You want them free?
You got broken knives, like that.
They also, Tony, because we removed the street signs and the trash cans, they think the gutter pans and the sidewalks are the trash.
Oh,
cans.
it's horrible too, no, I'm not,
My
I just-
guys spent an entire day, all of my guys last week spent an entire day downtown picking up garbage from Oak Street to the duck pond over here, and they say they got well over 200 pounds of garbage just out of downtown.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I believe it, it's nuts, I'm like,
It's
I'm
terrible.
walking downtown, I see it all the time, I try to pick up whatever.
Yes.
I cleaned some of the stuff out of my storm drains and then just down by my house.
I was down, downtown before Christmas shopping, and I watched a gentleman come out of our shop, walk to his car, get in his car for a little bit, get out of his car, walk around to the passenger side of his car,
large
shop
hefty bags every
and tell
day.
them to flag that whole
This is
that
also
person,
stuff people
and tell
bring
them
in.
that next time they buy, they better not dump their
Yeah,
stuff,
they
because
dump
they
it,
know who
dump it
bought
right
that.
there.
No, no, it's better than that for me.
Yeah,
I
2 big
go
hefty
out
bags
and I
every day.
make a scene, and I yell at them, and I say, take
so
your
whatever
garbage
gets left
back to
outside-
Illinois where you came from,
Nice.
and don't ever come back here
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
If that's the way you're gonna treat my town.
If I see them, I pick them up, I walk in,
The garbage
and I'm
cans
like,
would
hey,
be
you might just pick up the wrapper, because even if the person's not there, their information's at every barcode.
Gotcha.
That transaction is on every one of them, so it's like, here you go, Pinnacle.
You just need more
Here you go,
garbage.
this guy. Yeah.
They need to have
Put
lots
something
of
in their
them.
notes.
Yeah,
you know,
the
and
problem
I'll say
is,
stuff.
the collecting.
Right.
That's a hard part, yeah.
What store do you in?
It's, cannabis stuff.
I got no more knuckles.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm kinda.
What's the name of it?
Cannabis.
That sounds like they don't work. I was down in jail with my office. Trying to.
Oh, yeah, I sure did.
Yeah.
It hurt, it doesn't hurt anymore.
Well, I'm embarrassed because
It's like the skin all died around, so I'm
I
taking
know.
the skin off all day.
decorated, just took down a Christmas display, so.
So I took these off when I was doing home renovations. I was about 4 pieces of flooring in,
It's not a place I
and I
would
went
shop.
like this,
So, it didn't.
caught a nail on the floor,
And
under my
we didn't have
fingernail,
a
ripped that fingernail clear back into here. Holy cow.
Hardware store?
I'm not a bleeder, like I don't
So I
bleed,
just went
like,
back down on the other side.
I guess my blood is thicker than oil sometimes, like it just
Where you
beads
from?
up and down the
I
road.
lived in Dixon.
I'm telling you right now, I bled like I was
Here.
cut an artery
I
out
had
of that
family
finger.
here, I had lots of family here.
I was dripping blood all
From
over the
Buchanan
place.
or from-
My daughter came upstairs, she was like, Dad,
Niles.
what is going on in here? Where are you bleeding at? I was like, right here, you bleed there? She goes, no, that's not right, you're bleeding everywhere.
Tourniquet
I
on.
said, oh, no, I just stuck it in my mouth, sucked on it for a
All
second.
right, that's no problem.
Recycled it, Norma.
That is the best.
Yeah.
Put it in your mouth.
Halloween's a big deal.
It's my blood.
Mm.
It's not like I stuck your finger in my mouth that was bleeding.
I should do that.
That's
We're
why
gonna
they
have
have
the
the
city.
They have
That's
to-
what Chucky does.
No, she hasn't got the caught up.
And then, 3 days later, I was splitting wood for a buddy of mine, and got that one stuck in the log splitter, almost took it off. That was ripped off. They grew back pretty good.
Does your wife let you go outside by yourself?
Not very often. She makes my kids go off there with me.
If you see red stuff,
Yeah.
don't come and get me.
Yeah.
Take care of it yourself.
She might be trying to kill me. She bought me a new chainsaw for Christmas. So when I had my bilateral carpal tunnel surgery done, the doctor when I went back to my post-op, he was like, we have never seen anyone with skin as thick as you have. Like your skin on your hands is as thick as cowhide. So when I cut my fingers or something, I can burn my hands like I literally grab a hold of something and these guys are like, they can't touch it and I'm just hanging on to it like, what? What's the problem? So literally when I do that stuff, like this finger right here, when they took this off, it was a big gouge out of my finger. Like it's a 1/4 inch thick when it comes off.
Harvey, I got a question
I was,
for you.
Yes, sir.
I was playing
So
basketball
on
when I
March
was a kid.
7th,
My
and
cousin
feel free to tell me
we were
you're
on roller skates.
we do a prefix dinner series.
My cousin had on, she actually
And
had
it's
on
just we close down the
rollerblades.
bar or the restaurant,
And
and
then
we,
it was after the ball, I fell down, had my hand on the ground, and
This
she came
particular
by
one
and
is
skated on my
based
finger.
on
And it
all ours.
took the whole skin off.
And
from
this,
here
the seventh,
to
I
the end of
think,
my
is
finger,
the word.
and it was just a big
And
chunk of
it
skin.
has so much people right with the
Peeled
divination.
right off.
And
Big,
we were
thick.
wondering if potentially, feel free, I went to liquor establishment, so I don't know if you, would be willing if I
Yeah,
brought you and
that.
somebody else there that night, if you would come out and potentially give us basically the indigenous people's speech that you gave.
Oh. Yeah, let me know, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be super cool, and as soon as
Oh, I don't
they
roller
brought,
skate
my events group, and
I
forgive me
used
for
to
not
roller
knowing
skate
the
all the
part,
time.
I just heard Ojibwe-nation and then
Like
I had a
hers.
reference.
Okay.
And I was like, let me speak to Harvey,
I
because
did
we always
learn
have a
how-
speaker.
I
And I think it would be super cool to have you.
I used to ice skate, roller skate all the time.
I said I would ask him,
Yeah.
that you have restrictions, and I didn't know if you Yeah, I know the orders there, and I don't even drink, so.
But one thing about so funny.
You guys come serve beers, we're thinking about doing Jerry Flutter. Just get random community members
Me?
to come
Did you
and
know
just
what
talk
you were
and-
getting into?
and-
No, I did
Come and
not,
talk,
but
that's
it's
one
been
thing.
almost a
Serving
year now.
alcohol, that would be.
You really wouldn't be, you would just stay
Watch
behind the
this
bar
back,
talking.
watch right here.
Yeah.
It would be more fun than that to wait tables.
That's right.
That too, that's okay.
My knees don't work.
Yeah,
And
but I mean.
it just threw me right off.
Fundraiser,
It's just for community recognition, sustainability.
Well,
you know,
I
just
thought
talking
you
about
wanted to
what we
step
do on the
out
farm.
here.
Yeah.
Most of these events we do are
Those
on the
are,
farm.
those are deadly.
Closed.
That would,
They're coming.
we could actually see it, and then to bring some officers and just.
They won't be able,
Yeah, and then whatever
they
some
won't
of
be
the
able
proceeds
to.
can go to shopper.
Yeah.
I got such a migraine right now.
Yeah, we always try to do some philanthropic.
Yeah, I bet you're freezing.
I just want to fall asleep.
Well, they left one in the back, but.
Yeah.
Where's
the body?
What did you guys say? What did you guys say?
Wait, 5 of you left.
Was there, was it buy one, get one free at the shop or something?
Well,
Hey, that's a way to get rid of your competition. Right? Both of you said buy one, get one free at either shop.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to re-enter open session?
Make said motion.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you. Can we have roll call, please?
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yes.
Money.
Yes.
You're in open.
All right, thank you. I would move to authorize the city administration to take action pursuant to discussions held in closed session. Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you. The roll call, please.
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yep.
Money.
Yes.
Carries.
Thank you. To communications. None? Public comment on non-agenda items only. Anybody wishing to make a public comment? Please.
I have one. Actually, let's see. Oh, I have to go over there?
Yeah.
And state. Excuse me.
So is everyone,
Can you state your name for the minutes, please?
oh yes, my
Sorry.
name is Mary Gilbert, Gilbert, and I live at 925 North Detroit.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Everybody here's been to McDonald's, I'm sure, and sat in one of their lines that are extremely long and extremely slow. And you sit there and you wait, and you wait, and you wait. And while you're waiting, what are you doing? You're looking around at McDonald's backyard and all the crap that's blowing through it. And I was wondering if the city could ask them nicely to please pay more attention to policing the garbage in their yard. Is that possible? Okay, excellent, thank you. Also, this afternoon, because I am new to the area, I go on little adventures and I learn about where I am. So my adventure today was downtown, and I wandered around for about an hour and a half, mostly looking in the windows of closed stores, but I had a good time, you know, it was kind of, and during my adventure, I came across this great big sign. And it told all about the history of Buchanan, and my big takeaway from it was that the city was founded in 1830, which is 7 years away. So since about 5 times today, I heard that we don't plan well, I thought I would mention, I just thought I would mention that's coming up really fast. And I have one idea, well actually I have several, but the one I want to talk about is, I was thinking it would be really cool if there is a winery here in Buchanan, something very local, that you could partner with now for your 7-year-away event and make a special 200-year anniversary wine, Buchanan anniversary wine that you could sell at the event somehow. Well, probably the company. But here's the part that I think is really cool. Here's the part that I think is really cool. It takes a while to make wine, I think. I'm not a wine drinker. I belong in Kentucky. But anyway.
Yeah. Maybe a bourbon.
Yes. Yeah, and the good stuff too.
7-year-old bourbon.
Anyway, if we could start and we could work through the entire process of making wine. So you get a couple Buchananites and they go out and they do whatever's first, pick grapes or whatever. And we get a writer to write the story up. Maybe the Historical Society could produce somebody, or maybe the school system knows of a really good writer or something, but the writer goes and the Buchananites go. They do step one. She has her perspective on, or he has their perspective on that part of it. And then he, whatever, interviews the participants and gets their comments like, holy moly, who knew grapes were so heavy? You know, whatever their thoughts on it are, and they write it up. And then they go to the next step, which is, I don't know, squishing grapes. And then they go through that, and the same process over and over and over as it works its way through. Here's the testing it, and the changing it, and the putting a little sugar in it, or whatever it is they do. And at the end, you have a story with everybody's participation comments.
That's a great idea.
I think it is. So, you guys get on that, okay?
So instead of Boone's Farm, it would be Buchanan's Farm?
Yeah. I don't know. Do you even have a winery?
Yes.
That is a great idea.
Winery at River St. Joe.
There we go. And I'm
River
sure
St.
after
Joe.
And we got
receiving a
Layman's
big
across the street.
$60,000 check, he'd be happy to do that with us. But
That is a cool idea, though.
And you got Round Barn moving down.
You end up with a
I have
book
more
and
ideas.
a
You want to hear
bottle of
more
wine.
ideas?
That's cool. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a great
Okay,
idea.
my
Come
next
back
idea?
and we'll give you 3 more minutes.
There we go, yeah.
What? I ran out of time?
That was a great idea.
That was a great
though.
idea.
That's a great
Honestly.
idea. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Mary.
It was awesome. Anyone
Well-
else wish to make a
Probably
public comment?
Buchanan.
Hannah.
Any other public comments? Going once, going twice? Hurry up, Rick. Got anything? Nothing. Okay, moving on to city manager comments.
I have none this evening, other than now I want to go home and have some wine, so thank you.
It's a really great idea. Mr. Weaver,
I'm good.
Mr. Swim,
No comment.
Mr. Vidansky.
I just want to ask one question. I seen on Facebook today that we give an officer to the police, a police officer to the schools. Was that something that was, I mean, how did that work out? I didn't think an officer was actually authorized to work for the school through the commission. And are we gonna have to hire another officer to replace the one that's gonna work for the school?
So there's a really long answer to that. I'm happy to follow up with you after the meeting if you would like.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
Mr. Money?
Just want to say thank you to this commission for everything they do. We don't have a lot of people left here, but some of these situations are extremely hard, and just want to thank all the people that are involved. And that's all I have.
I just wanted to publicly give my condolences to Penny Slocum on her father passing away. I think today was his funeral, wasn't it? Other than that, I don't have any comments. So I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make said motion.
Thank you. There's support.
Support.
Can we have roll call, please?
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski, Money,
Yes.
Swem.
Yes.
Your turn.
I need to speak with you briefly, if I can.
Heather, you can call me tomorrow.
Call you tomorrow?
It's
Okay.
10 o'clock.
What's that?
Just call me tomorrow.
Okay, I will do that. Is there a certain time that's best for you, or just at whenever?
No, I've had 3 hours of this stuff
I get it.
over.
You ready to go home and have some wine too?
Yeah.
I feel ya.